Gather around, freaks. It's time for another exciting episode of Hey, Did You See This One?
That's all I have to say.
The night is dark, and the air is still. The moon casts an eerie glow over the internet, where a group of curious individuals have gathered to discuss their shared fascination for the macabre. They hold in their hands a book with a foreboding presence, bound in flesh and inked in blood, a tome of horror that only opens its pages when a sacrifice is made. Within its ancient passages lie the secrets of the most infamous murderers and monsters of all time. Join us. But beware, for once this book is open, there's no telling what horrors may be unleashed. This is the grimoire of familiar killers.
I don't get it. They should be here by now.
What are you gonna do?
Oops, I did it again. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Hey, Did You See This One? This is the weekly roundtable review discussion about film and movie. It is the month of October, which means it's the Grimoire of Familiar Killers. We've opened the Grimoire. All kinds of goop and freaks and juice is flying out, and ghosts and slop flying out. It's covering the screen. This is
I just realized my
episode...
Freddy intro sounded more like Beetlejuice than it did like I was doing a Beetlejuice earlier today.
You didn't even say bitch, and I was like, oh,
Yeah.
You didn't talk about the internet radio or the internet fire.
I didn't. You caught me off guard. I was drawing Zardos. I didn't expect it.
Sorry. This is season 3, episode 17. It's also episode 156. Orville, I demarcate seasons for no reason. So if that sounds confusing, it's confusing to me too. I have a list. It's great. I make sure to, keep track. Speaking of, welcome to the show for the first time, star of stage and screen, Orville Cummings. Orville Cummings, the star boy himself. Welcome. Can we hear this man?
Oh, he's finally here. You asked for him. We got him.
That's right. Thank you for joining us. We are, of course, talking about what I consider to be the last Freddy movie, Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare from 1991. It is a ridiculous, barely horror comedy almost film. We'll get into all of that. I just want to read this because I liked this movie a lot. I saw it when I was very young, and then I saw it like yesterday. And we'll talk about our brief histories with it in a minute. But I didn't believe that this movie was bad watching it because it's so fun, but apparently people hated it. And I read here's a quote that I found. The film holds a 22% positive rating on film review aggregator website Rotten Tomatoes, based on 36 reviews, with an average rating of 3.8 out of 10. The site's critical consensus reads, reducing the once terrifying Dream Reaper into a goofy caricature, this joyless climax will leave audiences hoping Freddy stays dead. It's the second lowest rated Elm Street movie on the website, ahead of only the 2010 remake. And the Austin Chronicle wrote, Freddy Krueger has devolved from horrific, ill-defined phantasm from the original film into a bland, annoyingly predictable boogeyman loved by kids everywhere. And that's pretty apt, because in 1991, I distinctly remember people coming to school at age 6, 7, 8 and being like, yeah, the new Freddy rules. I, of course, was horrified. I couldn't handle horror at that age. But now watching it, I see why it was a hit with the bad kids at school.
The bad boys.
The bad boys. Every school had a couple of those kids who were just up to no
I always
good.
assumed you were one. When I first met you, I was like, Jason was a bad boy for sure. This guy.
I wasn't. I was a little wiener. I was a little wiener kid. I'm talking about, what was that? What were those two bulldogs? Chip and Pepper. And there's this one kid. He was always talking about. He was always talking about Freddy Krueger and Jason. He had a Chip and Pepper shirt, and he had a hat with like a metal part on the top, like right here, that said like rad or something. Look, it was the early 90s. We all dressed crazy. And he was like the worst. He was always just, he was like a bully.
I have no idea what half the stuff you're talking about means.
Chip and Pepper. Okay.
I don't know what Chip and Pepper is.
I don't know what Chip and Pepper either.
I'm going to find Chip and Pepper and show you guys while we
find Chip and Pepper.
This is one of those rare moments where me and Jason's age gap really shows, even though it's such a tiny age gap.
It's like 3 years, but yeah. Cool. Well, welcome to the show, Orville. We've been talking about having you on for quite some time now. We would like to talk about one of your movies in the near future. You are, of course, in films and things of that nature, and that's very exciting for us here as a movie podcast. So we'll get to that when we do. But tonight we are talking about Freddy Krueger. So without further ado, oh, you know what? I forgot to brief you on this. Do you feel comfortable doing a brief synopsis of the film, just in a few words? Do you feel comfortable with that?
Oh, yeah, I'll do it. It might not be what it is, but I'll do it.
Hold on one second, because we have a special message from Freddy himself.
It's time for a synopsis, bitch.
Well, damn.
You heard the man.
That was awesome.
He sounds serious.
My synopsis of the movie, because I was just talking about this movie with someone today, one of my friends today, and I was just like, it's basically the weirdest backstory of Freddy Krueger and how he got his powers and why he's doing what he's doing, and then he just dies.
Mm-hmm.
Literally, it's even in the title. You could have just read the title.
Jason,
sorry, I hit the wrong thing.
Yo, I thought we were on a commercial break. I'm like, oh shit.
No, I was trying to do the background.
Oh, these guys got sponsors. Oh, this is crazy.
Just cut you off for a sponsor break. Yeah, sorry about that. Didn't mean to cut you off.
It's all
Go
good.
ahead.
No, that's it. Yeah, I was saying that you could even just read the title of the movie and just use it as like a prologue to the last movie, because this is how it's gonna end. You didn't have to like it. I will say though, this is not a part of the synopsis, but I did enjoy the movie because I have a soft spot for 80s horror movie, and it was an 80s horror movie coming out of the 80s. I think it was 91, the release. It was
91, yeah.
Yeah, 91. So it was coming out of the 80s, but it's like it had some things I appreciated about the horror movies of that era. But my God. But we'll get into it. We'll chop it up.
Yeah,
we will. Yeah, we'll chop it up. And the next thing that we do on this show is our brief history with the movie. So hit that, Steve.
A brief history.
A brief history.
Yeah, we got
voices everywhere.
We got a thing for everything.
I'm glad that you're reacting to all of them. Most people
like, oh, shit.
are like, what the fuck?
You ever played that game, Hellblade Senua's Sacrifice? I feel like her.
She's just tripping balls the whole time.
Yeah, the whole time.
This podcast is actually a metaphor for PTSD. So it is the
crazy.
same as that game. Yeah.
It's also an outlet for my mental illness.
talk about a movie for 2.5 hours. That said, here on Hey Did You See This One, the guest always goes first. So Orville, this is the 6th movie in the series. So give us your brief history with this movie in particular. But if you want to talk about your history with Freddy and horror in general, feel free.
I'll start by saying this. When I was like, I wanted to watch the movie as close to the day of the podcast, just so it's like super fresh in my mind, because I didn't grow up watching this movie, because I didn't even know it made it to part 6, which is crazy to me. Because wait, can I say this? Where the places I've tried to source to watch the movie had 1 to 5. I didn't see 6. I don't know if I had to type in the full title, but most of them had the number and then what the secondary title is. This one I couldn't find it. When I finally found it, I was like, okay, this is going to be a new experience and a reintroduction to Freddy Krueger, one of my favorite, horror villains. But I've grown up watching Nightmare on Elm Street. I don't know what order. I just watched it when it came on cable, and I've always enjoyed it because as a kid, you get scared of that. That and Final Destination messed me up as a kid. Didn't want to be awake. Didn't want to go to bed. It was crazy. My life was crazy as a kid.
Very good.
Yeah, that's my history.
I mean, I have sort of a similar one. This actually might be the first one I ever saw. I pretty much have the same brief history for all these movies every single Grimoire month that we do, which is I got real brave after middle school and decided to binge all of them as much as I could, and this wasn't the exception, except I think that this might have been the first Nightmare on Elm Street that I watched, because there were marathons on, and I distinctively remember the first time I ever saw Freddy Krueger was him getting the absolute shit kicked out of him by Yaphet Kotto with a baseball bat. I'm like, yeah, this is Freddy? Oh, this is amazing. And so I don't know, that image of Yaphet Kotto beating him up with a baseball bat in like a gym with like a hanging punching bag is just burned into my mind. And almost any time I think of Freddy Krueger, my mind wanders to that imagery as well, which, isn't really like an iconic moment in any Freddy movie, but it is for me, I guess. So that's one of those things that I think about all the time. It must have been one of those like showcases playing all of them all night long on the week leading up to Halloween or whatever. And this was just the first one that I saw, which isn't even the beginning of the movie. So my first introduction to Freddy Krueger was near the end of the 6th movie, where a character who plays another character in a movie that I love, Alien, which I've seen a million times, is beating Freddy Krueger up with a baseball bat. I'm like, okay, this is good. My introduction was, okay, I think I can handle the rest of these, because if this is Freddy getting beaten up so easily with a baseball bat, I can deal. Jason, how about you?
It's like I was saying, I remember, I don't think I ever saw this movie all the way through, but it was one of those things where I caught bits and pieces of it on cable. I remember getting Shudder. They'd always give us Shudder as a free preview when that channel first started. Around Halloween, you'd always get the free preview. And I caught bits and pieces. Chucky was more notable, that I was like watching through my fingers. Orville, I couldn't handle horror until I basically was halfway through The Walking Dead. The Walking Dead desensitized me for horror in my like early 30s. Wow. Because I watched RoboCop as an 8-year-old or a 7-year-old, and it fucked me up, buddy. It messed me up.
RoboCop. Yeah. It was kind of creepy.
It's a crazy, gory movie for the era, and it's 7 years old. It was like the height of movie gore and intensity, right? So
yeah,
I always say I was trapped in my mind prison for decades, and then after getting through The Walking Dead and starting this podcast,
I'm just picturing you like shoplifting as a 10-year-old and being scared RoboCop is going to catch you and shoot you 1,000 times.
Shoot me 100 times in the dick. Yeah. Slowly I got desensitized through watching The Walking Dead, because that movie, the TV show, it's pretty gory. And then through doing this movie, I've sort of eased into getting more and more comfortable with horror. And now it's like all I watch. I watched like 20 horror movies this month, including all of the Hellraiser movies, which are pretty intense.
Any of them, that's crazy.
Yeah, so as far as this movie goes, I remember it fondly. Well, not so fondly, I guess. And to go back to what we were talking about at the beginning, Chip and Pepper
oh God,
created activewear. Thank you. For the men. Chip and Pepper.
Pepper.
Oh, man.
But they were represented by this logo,
Okay.
and their
Oh,
shirts look like this. So I don't
wow. Okay.
know this. Also, here's a picture of Breckenmeyer that I found on my desktop for some reason,
Hey.
from about that era. But this, I just remember this was all over the place. It was the hip thing for the kids to wear. But this one bully kid would wear this shit and just terrorize people and be like, I was allowed to watch Freddy Krueger, but he was probably watching this one, which is barely a horror movie. So that's my
Dang.
brief history with Freddy's Dead, the Final
Dang,
Nightmare.
wow.
And Chip and Pepper.
And
Came
Chip
full
and
circle.
Pepper. Yeah.
All right. Should we move on to talking about the director?
Let's talk about the director. Yeah.
All right.
All right. Quiet on set. Are we rolling? Okay, let's shoot this piece of
Sound. Speed.
action.
Mental illness. I told you.
Hey, it's very entertaining. I will say.
I hope so, because we can listen to it every week. So Rachel Talalay, the director of this movie, I believe she was a producer on every other Freddy Krueger movie before this. So she was sort of like deeply entrenched in the world. You know, Wes Craven was sort of out of the picture at this point, but what's his name? Robert Shea, I believe his name is, the like head of New Line, was also, he's the, you know, the ticket booth guy at the bus who's like,
Yeah.
get on the bus. That's Robert Shea. So he usually has
back
cameos.
up later too, right?
He does cameos in these movies all the time because he appreciates Freddy. As New Line Cinema is often referred to as the house that Freddy built, because New Line Cinema was a dying film studio, and the movie that saved them was the first Nightmare on Elm Street movie. It basically took them on the brink of bankruptcy into what it is now. It still exists now, right? Anyway, he does his cameos, but this movie is full of cameos, which we'll talk about, I guess, once we get to the body. But yeah, the director, she has, you know, she's not like a slouch when it comes to Freddy. She knew what she was doing. She's been around since the beginning. And I think for her, she was like, I'm down to kill this character, because New Line had kind of reached its new heights, and it was, you know, we don't need Freddy anymore. And, you know, maybe we should finally kill Freddy. And that was sort of the decision, is like, let's kill Freddy. But I don't know why they're like, but also along the way, let's turn him into a laughingstock Looney Tune character where no one's scared of him anymore. But I think that was sort of analogous with what people were feeling about Freddy Krueger as they went on, is like, this character is sort of a one-trick pony. He comes for you in your dreams. That's all he does. And he always gets defeated at the end. And people were no longer frightened of Freddy Krueger. So they're like, I guess let's ridicule him before we blow him up with a pipe bomb.
What's interesting, Chekhov's pipe bomb is all I'll explain later. But what's interesting about this is, to go back to our sort of brief history and the way that I remember Freddy, is I thought through all of the movies he was basically Bugs Bunny. But in the last movie, he was sort of getting there. But the last two movies played more body horror, and they still had some really gross stuff in them. But by the time you get to this, it reminds me of the third Chucky, where it's kind of just become a joke. He's kind of just doing his one-trick pony thing, like Steve said. And he is a full-on Bugs Bunny, to the point that he's literally like setting up a wall that somebody goes through and creates like, you know, a silhouette of themselves, and it just feels like you're watching Saturday morning cartoons, but Freddy's there. Like, I'm surprised if this movie didn't kill Freddy, or did even better. I'm not, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if there was one season of a Saturday morning cartoon that's like, you know, Nightmare on Elm Street, the animated series. You know, I found out looking.
Jason, we're still talking about the director.
I know. I just wanted to add this to just to finish my thought.
I just couldn't find a point to like be like, hey, we can talk about this, but let's still finish talking about the director.
There's a Problem Child animated series. That's all I wanted to say. But just to go back to Rachel Talalay, she produced 3 and 4, so she was very familiar with the Bugs Bunny era of Freddy, and her body of work goes till today. And she's touched so many good TV shows. And she also directed, of note, Tank Girl. And as recently as 2018, she worked on the new Sabrina TV show, Doctor Who, the Quantum Leap reboot, and
Yeah,
a bunch
for
of like
Doctor Who, she was
DC
like, as
stuff.
soon as she found out, she's like a massive Doctor Who fan, and when she found out that was being rebooted, she was like, I gotta figure. I have my own magical screwdriver or whatever it's called, sonic screwdriver. I don't know a lot
Yeah,
about
the sonic
Doctor
screwdriver.
Who. But yeah, she wanted to jump on that. But yeah, I mean, she has a really kind of cool filmography, and it's a lot of TV, but a lot of good TV, a lot of TV that I'm actually familiar with. You know, like sometimes you'll find a director and it's like they directed 4 episodes of some Italian soap opera you've never heard of, which happens on the show all the time.
All the time.
She's worked on a lot of stuff that I actually like and actually have seen. That being said, yeah, her career mostly in TV, but she is sort of like, she's been around since the beginning of Freddy, so it's kind of appropriate that she was there for the final Freddy. And you know, this canonically, I guess, is the end of Freddy in terms of the canonical movies from the first one to this one, because after this, it's sort of like the gray area where you get like the Freddy's versus Jason and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I read that the next one, the Wes Craven's New Nightmare, is technically non-canon because it's outside.
It's 100% non-canon. Yeah.
Yeah, it's outside of it. They're making a movie in the real. It's more like a Scream movie, and then the final movie.
Wes Craven is in the movie.
Yeah,
directing,
and
writing a Freddy Krueger script. Yeah.
The final Freddy movie is technically Freddy versus Jason, and then he comes back in a remake, which is supposed to be like the gritty reboot that everybody hates because it's they take it too far. He's too gross.
Yeah, he's an actual pervert. I mean, he's a pervert in these as well, but he's, you know, at least it's like pervert with sugar on top or whatever. You can deal with it. Orville, do you know anything about the director? Want to add anything, or can we start talking about the movie itself?
Yeah, I wasn't too familiar with their work until you know, I didn't even like take in who directed it. I just did a quick Google search and saw her filmography and everything. And yeah, the fact that she came in around which one was it, 3, 4, and 5 that she was there from?
Yeah, she was a producer
directing
on those, but I think she was working on all of them in some capacity.
Yeah.
I'm not sure exactly what she did for the first one.
I wanted to know what she was thinking that entire time she's been producing these movies and saying, yeah, this is great, but let me direct it and I'll show you something special. And she comes out and just, because I remember watching it too, I'm like, yo, this is funny, but like, I swear he had something about him that made me afraid of him. And now I'm just like, this is crazy. This is just, she comes on the... But I appreciate it because like she makes it fun. It's been this. If you don't like this one, go watch the other 5. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like it's like this one's just a fun throwaway one because literally they're throwing the character away. Like, how do you kill someone that can be killed?
I picture her like coming onto set. I picture her like coming onto set every day for all the other movies, and she's just like, "Yeah, what's up, Doc?" And then like, "Hey, you want to direct one of these?" And she's like, "Of course I do.
Of course I do."
Perfect.
Yeah.
The mashup of all the kills at the end, there were some mashups that I had forgotten that are fucking disgusting. And in this, I don't think one kill made me even cringe. They made me cringe in a different way. They made me cringe like, what is this weird video game thing?
There's one moment in this that I'm like, this is maybe one of the grossest things in all Freddy movies. But other than that one thing, yes, I agree with you completely. Yeah. I'll tell you what it is because we're gonna get to it eventually. It's when he sticks the Q-tip through the guy's ear and comes out the other ear.
And that's like the first thing he does. And I was like, oh, is that they're setting the tone? This is gonna be fucking gnarly. And then you're right. That's it. It changes up almost after.
I mean, we'll get to it when we get to it, but that entire sequence is pretty good. I think that whole like him fucking with Carlos is pretty good. Yeah, I don't have anything else more to add. If you guys want to move on to the body of the episode,
let's go to the body.
The body?
The body of the episode.
Breckenmeyer.
He's the real body of the episode, if you know what I'm saying.
I want to just say outright, funny thing for me with Breckenmeyer has always been that he's been playing the age that he is in this movie for like the next 10 or 15 years. He always is like in college or high school, and he started looking like this towards the end of the 90s, where he's got like a 5 o'clock shadow, but he's supposed to be in grade 9 or junior in college. And it's always rubbed me the wrong way. But to see Breckenmeyer,
I think it's because he's like a little guy and he's got a cute face or whatever, and he didn't get like sort of like, you know, people get meaty in their face when they're like they become handsome, but it's like their face develops more. He just kind of stayed looking exactly.
He just kind of stayed looking the same. Yeah.
He just basically got physically typecast, I think, for a long time. And he also has sort of a dumb guy voice. No offense to him, but just like the way he talks. Kind of has the cadence of a teenager.
He's got a funny name. I like saying Breckenmeyer.
Yeah, Breckenmeyer.
Breckenmeyer.
So yeah, the movie Freddy. What is it called? Freddy's Dead. This is the reason you found out.
Freddy got fingered.
You had a hard time finding it, is because it's not called The Nightmare on Elm Street Part whatever. It's just not entitled.
Yeah,
I own it and digitally, and I think I have a physical copy somewhere. But even in my like digital library, because it's alphabetized, when I was looking for this, I was like, I swear I have it digitally. Where is it? And I like was freaking out, and then I had to like go all the way down to F, and I was like, fuck. And then A New Nightmare is called Wes Craven's A New Nightmare, so it's all the way to W's. And you're like, come on, man. So I feel your pain. I couldn't even find it, and I owned it.
Yeah, it was crazy.
The movie opens with a Friedrich Nietzsche quote. I don't remember what the quote is, but
I think it's this. I think it's to live is to suffer, to survive is to find some meaning in the suffering. He who has a why to live can bear almost anyhow. Whoever fights monsters should see to it that in the process he does not become a monster. And then what's the next quote? What's the next quote that comes up right after this amazing?
I'm almost certain that that's not the quote.
I googled.
It's, do you know the terror of he who falls asleep? To the very toes he is terrified, because the ground gives way under him and dreams begin. That's the quote. Because the reason I was like, that's not the quote, is because you kept going. And I was like, that's like a scrolling text of like a Star Wars. That was too many words. And then Freddy's is Welcome to Prime Time, bitch, which is funny. And I'm like, did they just choose it because they're both named Freddy? Like they're just two different Freddys who have different messages for the world? Or was it because it's about dreams? Who knows? I'm not going to look too deep into it. It was outweighed by the fact that the follow-up quote was "Welcome to prime time, bitch." Like, okay.
Well, no, I think my interpretation was they tried to. It was like the bait and switch. You see this Friedrich Nietzsche quote, and you're like, "Oh man, this is going to be intense," and then they hit us with a joke 10 seconds later. Welcome to prime time, bitch.
Well, yeah, I think the joke is that it's offset by this Freddy is smart and this Freddy is very basic. You're gonna laugh. You're setting the tone for the movie. It's gonna be funny. And what do you guys think of this opening sequence? It's pretty good, I think. Like overall, I think that the starting on a plane is cool, and you always know you're in a Freddy dream scenario when the angles are canted and the lighting is weird and everything is just kind of MTV fisheye lenses, and you're like, okay, everything feels uncomfortable at this. It's probably not reality, but they always do a pretty good job of starting you pretty flat and then bringing you into like, okay, things are amping up. I don't know. How do you guys feel about it?
I thought it was good. It's the sequence where we basically meet John Doe, right? And he's on a plane
and he's scared of heights, which is
which I can identify with.
I think most human beings are scared of heights naturally, unless there's something wrong with your brain.
We also get that message that's like 10 years in the future.
I forgot about that.
Kids are dead. All the adults have gone insane. And then he's on the plane. He's looking down, and then the woman next to him is acting like a jerk. And then I'm going, oh, he's obviously in a dream, because every Freddy movie starts this way. But the funny part is she's like yelling at him, and then she flies out the top of the airplane, and then he flies out the bottom of the airplane, and then we get this sequence where like he falls down into like a falling house, kind of like a Wizard of Oz kind of thing. It's kind of
he falls into the top of the house and he lands in the bed, and it's the classic Freddy thing, or it's like, are they still in a dream sort of thing? And of course they are. But actually the plane, that was supposed to be the first cameo. I don't know if you guys know this, but
was it Twilight Zone?
No, the first cameo, not reference. The woman next to him was supposed to be, so the director of this has worked with John Waters and David Lynch before, so there's a few John Waters and David Lynch references throughout, and they even kind of film it to sort of look like a John Waters movie at points. But that was supposed to be Divine, the drag queen from Pink Floyd.
Wow.
Yeah, she was supposed to be the one who calls him a pussy or whatever. Don't be a pussy. which would have been amazing, but unfortunately she had passed away at this point, so she
Mm.
couldn't do it, obviously. But it's one of those moments where you're like, man, what if Will Smith played Neo in The Matrix? Like, how different would the movie be? Like, I think about that every time I watch this movie. I'm like, would the entire tone of this movie be different if Divine called him a pussy and then got sucked out of the ceiling?
I think Will Smith playing Neo and Divine being in the movie for 10 seconds might have been culturally a little bit different, but
No, it would have been exactly the same. I'm telling you.
this movie would have made $100 billion and
Mhm.
would still be the most popular movie of all time.
I
Facts.
think so.
Yeah, I like the beginning. I think it was fun. It got right. I like when movies just get right to the point, you know. And I guess it's the sixth one, so it's just like,
Don't
just
fuck
tell me what's
around.
happening.
Yeah.
Just tell me what's happening. Yeah. Kids are. Oh my god. Okay. Stakes are high. We're in an airplane. All right, cool. What's happening? I thought it was really good, and it kind of in that 5 to 10 minute sequence of the opening of the movie, you can decide as a viewer if this is what you want to watch for the next hour and a half, because that's the movie for the rest of the time. Like whatever you got in those 10 minutes, that's what's gonna keep happening.
But-
So
Yeah.
The Friday the 13th movies are like this, where I'm like, we did the sixth one on our last episode, and that movie's it's not great, but it's like he gets right to the killing. I think somebody dies in the first 10 minutes in a kind of a weird, fun way, and that's what I wanted out of this as well. But I find that the Freddy Krueger movies have a better overall from the 80s, especially the 80s 90s section of the Grimoire movies. They have a better like vibe to them as far as like the griminess. Freddy feels more like the sets feel bigger, the set pieces feel better, you know, they feel a lot more lived in and higher production value. And this movie has yeah,
Okay.
There-
I disagree,
you know,
but you know,
we go back to
fun.
the house, we see his little
I know, but it doesn't-
hell lair.
It all feels a little bit chintzy to me. I have like the complete opposite. Even Freddy's makeup in this movie, it feels like they toned it down to a point that it feels like a rubber mask. But because like there are in the other movies, it's like goo. There's goo coming out of those burns and stuff. And in this, it just looks like it's one piece that they put out. Like they're like, don't worry, Robert, we figured out how to put the makeup on you in 45 minutes now. All one piece.
I did mean overall the Freddy movies feel like the set pieces are bigger, because you're right about this one. This one definitely feels cheaper because it is cheaper, but the last couple these movies are always more special because those set pieces, they always build these like sets that are like these rooms with multiple floors, like that like cathedral sort of hospital area from I think 2 movies ago. The one with the kid had a lot of really cool set pieces, even though the story was kind of dumb.
I think that was the last one. I can't. This is another problem I have with these movies. Is I'm like, I don't remember. I don't remember. I just remember the third one is the one where he smacks her into the TV and calls her a bitch. Welcome to prime time.
Welcome to prime time, bitch, because she wanted to be a movie star or whatever.
I like the opening. They use the song. What's it called? Like it's like a classical song. It's in Wizard of Oz. It's like the dun 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 dun. You know that song I'm talking about? Come on, you guys know it. What's it called?
I know it. Sure,
it sounds familiar, but
it's just a song that's associated with, you know, tense drama and horror in a lot of ways. And they take that song and they play it throughout the movie, mixed in with the Freddy score, which I thought was a pretty cool. An unexpected thing to do because none of the other movies have really played around with something like that. But the reason I say it's in the Wizard of Oz is because immediately the first gag we get is Freddy Krueger flying on a broomstick, being like,
"Yeah, I'll get you in your little soul too."
There was 2 great gags. There was that one for this one, and when he touches the window and the water comes in, I thought he was going to appear on the wing as a gremlin. I thought that would also be a great thing, like the Twilight Zone, because I thought that's what this is going to be a send up for. But he does show up as the Wicked Witch. He says, "I'll get you, my pretty, and your little soul too," which is funny, I guess. Not his best work.
Not his best work, no. I mean, it's better than "it's traveling time," and then he like goes into her head. You're like, wait, is that a quote? like clobbering time? Like, what are you talking about, Freddy? Freddy's lost the.
Well, the Hulk would have been on TV, but I don't know if TV Hulk said it's clobbering time.
No, and the Hulk doesn't say that. The Thing does.
Oh yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah.
I also thought with that intro, I thought that this John Doe kid later in the movie, before they do the kind of the twist, I thought he was going to be like the grown-up version of the Dream kid.
A lot of people think
that was
that's
a
the
bait and
case.
switch.
No, people think that's the case for real. Like, people are not convinced that that's not what it was supposed to be, because you never learn his real identity. He's always John Doe.
He's John Doe.
Yeah. Which, could have been fun, I guess, but they didn't do it. So clearly they didn't even think it was that. Like, they're like, whatever, who gives a shit? People didn't even see that last one.
Yeah.
There's a good matte painting. There's a few good matte paintings in this, in the backgrounds. When he's falling to earth, there's like the lights shining, like the spotlights. I thought that looked kind of cool. The house falling, he falls out of the house, he survives the fall down to the ground. It's nighttime. They're in somewhere called, has it always been Springwood? Is that where?
Yeah, Springwood is
it's
where it's set, but yeah, it's never really been a part of, like, they're never like Springwood, Ohio, my hometown. I can't escape from here. Like, they just added rules to this movie. They're like, what? Is that a rule? Freddy Krueger can't leave Springwood?
I can only leave in someone's dream. You have to dream about me over city lines.
Or something weird, right? Like, this movie was really trying hard to add a lot of strange rules. And like you were saying, Orville, like revelations that you're like, this has never been established before. But...
yeah, it's like, this is wild. It's like, what? Why have we tried to kill him? Why didn't we go after the cult that gave him the power? Like, what do you guys mean? What the hell?
Exactly.
What the fuck?
I like the fact that there are
the dream people, the ones who gave
the dream people.
Yeah.
They gave me this job. Oh my god!
Like, I kind of like that, but like, I don't like that they don't explain it until the last 5 minutes of the movie, and then it's over. You're like, what about the dream people? Where do they go?
Like, what the heck? Is that the spin-off where we go find the dream people?
Yeah,
to stop another Freddy Krueger?
Yeah, the 9-part HBO miniseries Dream People.
Man, actually. I might be lit. I might be down for that.
Orville, you can star in it.
Hey, I might be down for that shit. I might be down for that.
You can play the new Freddy. Can you do it?
Yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready, kids.
Freddy's ready.
Buckle up, bitch. I would say one of my favorite Freddy Krueger references is from one of my favorite TV shows, Rick and Morty. And it's like, you can run, but you can't hide, bitch. This bitch
he's having dinner with his family, and he's like, "Here you go, bitch. How was school today, bitch?
Bitch." Someone gives you something. Oh, bitch.
Yeah.
Fucking hilarious.
I want to point out something really kind of fucked up. So,
point it out.
The music in this movie was done by Brian May of Queen. Freddie Mercury is the name of the lead singer, who died in September 1991. This movie came out in November 1991.
And Carlos looks like Freddy Krueger.
Freddie
Mercury.
So I'm wondering if the music wasn't done and they wanted to pay homage, but it's fucked up because the movie's called Freddy's Dead. This seems like a weird like, I get the board, put the board up with all the strings connecting the dots, but it feels a little weird.
Yeah.
By the end of this episode, Jason's going to be convincing us that the water turns the
friggin' frogs gay, bitch.
Alex Jones kind of talks like Freddy anyway.
Yeah, that's weird. Damn, I never connected those dots. That's wild.
Isn't like the theme song done by like a famous person too?
Alice Cooper does the credits music, and he also is Freddy's dad.
Right. Where he's like, Freddy's dead. Freddy's dead.
Alice Cooper also did the theme song for Friday the 13th that we did this month as well, I believe, right? The end credits song.
Oh, did you guys? I meant to talk about this during the director part. Did you guys know that this was a 3D movie?
Yes, I found that out earlier today.
This was a 3D movie?
When she puts on the 3D glasses at the end.
They put the 3D glasses on.
The audience is supposed to put on the glasses too. But I was reading a little bit about it today, and apparently that there was no real indicator other than that that you had to put them on. So some people were just wearing them the whole time, being like, "This isn't working."
This
and
is
then
terrible.
And then other people just had them in their lap and forgot to put them on at that part because the movie doesn't tell
Movie
you.
didn't change?
Yeah,
Oh
put
my
your glasses on now.
Oh my
But
god! I
once you
can't
know
believe
that,
this.
yeah, you can tell when Freddy's head flies at the screen at the end. It's like,
He only puts it on like twice.
yeah, exactly.
What the fuck?
Now you can take your glasses off.
That's crazy.
It's also unclear
weird.
because they're like, you can put these glasses on and they can be anything. So
Yeah.
it feels very in movie.
Yaphet Kotto should have turned to the camera and been like, "Put your 3D glasses on now."
I think Friday the 13th 3D has that kind of vibe where they basically look at the camera and they're like, put on your 3D glasses now.
But I think that
There's
one
gonna
was
be an
3D
axe
the
flying
whole
at you.
time. This one has like a
Yeah.
moment in the movie that you have to literally put them on, or else they're useless the rest of the time.
That's crazy.
Anyway, apparently it's very difficult to find the 3D version of this anywhere now because it only exists on
Wow.
like.
Now I
rental
want to see it.
copies.
Now
Yeah.
I want to see it.
I want to see those dream people flying at me.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not gonna
And,
lie
like,
though.
that-
3D horror movies. I like that concept of just watching horror movies in 3D.
Yeah, the third Jason
Yeah.
movie is 3D and it's full. Like even when you're
Yeah.
not watching it in 3D, you're like 3D moment, 3D moment.
Yeah,
It's like
nah, it needs to be
Jason's-
full. It needs to be 4x screen.
Yeah.
Screen
well, it's like a thing where like,
around me in 3D. I want to feel this monster breathing on me.
If Freddy doesn't kill me in the theater,
That's
what
crazy.
do I spend my money on?
but it's
Yeah.
like the ones in Jason are very like it's like, you know, a guy like turns with a 2x4 and like walks toward the
Yeah.
screen. You're
Yeah.
like, okay, that's there's
Yeah.
like Jason Voorhees playing a trombone like at you. Like,
The third
Yeah.
Harold and Kumar, I saw the third Harold and Kumar in theaters, but they had the 3D element had been taken out of it.
Oh,
And that movie is very much like there's a part where a Christmas tree flies through a window on fire, and I was like, this sucks. This is for 3D.
yeah.
But yeah.
Anyway, the point I wanted to make was that a lot of people, when they saw the movie, didn't put their glasses on and then left and were like, that movie wasn't 3D. It's like, did you put your glasses on? Like, no, I forgot. I forgot to do it.
I couldn't see anything in that movie. I had the 3D glasses on the whole time, and only one part was in 3D.
Yeah.
John Doe-
I did want to say, like, during the John Doe part where he's running to get away or whatever,
He gets
there
hit
is
by
a
the bus.
moment. There is a moment where he biffs so hard on like a giant stack of wood, and like you see his face, and you're like, "That was real." Like that actor was like, "I broke my toe" or something. You know, like it looked like it was so painful.
oh god,
It was just a big pile of wood that I guess he was supposed to run up and jump
run
the
over it.
fence.
Yeah.
But he hits one and it's loose and it falls and he just falls
Oh,
into
man.
it. He's like crumples, and you're
I
like,
want to
"Ooh."
see that snippet. That's just fucking hilarious.
I just it's one of those like where I have like physical empathy, or I'm like I felt every bit of like, oh, that was not a stunt man, and that
Mhm,
kid looked injured, and he's so little, you know, he looks like such
Yeah.
a little guy that you're like, oh man, I hope he was okay.
I feel like it happened a lot back then. It's like, hey, we ain't got enough film to do another take. When you
Sorry.
bump your toe and you make a face,
Ain't it?
that's what the fuck going in there.
Robert Shea is just like,
Sorry, kid. That's show
Sorry, kid.
business. Now climb the fucking fence.
Stop being a pussy. Fucking hilarious.
and then we get our Robert Shea cameo, which is him in the toll booth where he's weirdly dressed like an usher for a movie, but he's selling bus tickets to a ghost
Yeah.
bus. And then we get
Talking like Freddy for some reason.
I think it's supposed to be Freddy. I think that's
Yeah.
what it's supposed to be. But Freddy shows up for his second time as a bus driver in the series. He's been a bus driver before, and I don't know. I predict he'll do it again. Freddy
They
loves
didn't have
driver
Ubers
bus.
back there, so
That's true, yeah. And then this is where you're like, okay, who's writing these Freddy lines? Are they just like expecting Robert Englund to show up and like have a bunch in his back pocket or something? Like they didn't even write stuff for him?
No screaming on the bus.
It's like, what?
While the bus is in motion.
Okay, man. They could have thought of something better, but
they could have. I don't know. Do you think it was improv though? And they're just like, yo, just say some random shit. You know the
Yeah.
character by now.
maybe those were the better line. Maybe they had a bunch written and like he just
Yeah.
said something that they're like, that's
You just
better.
like keep improving. One will stick. One will stick in the editing room.
Also, you only get to say bitch 3 times in this movie because it's
What?
PG-13 now.
Ah, son of
Son of a damn it, yeah. Okay.
Oh man, that's when Freddy started saying biatch.
Yuck.
Yeah.
Welcome to primetime, biatch. It doesn't hit the same.
Yeah, it
No,
doesn't have
it
the
doesn't
same, it doesn't have the
sound-
same oomph to it.
Nah.
Log trip playing, yeah. So yeah, and then we get our Looney Tunes where he's shot into reality, I guess, and it's literally Looney Tunes. It's like a him-shaped hole in reality, shooting him off into our world, I guess.
And Freddy says, like, go fetch, little doggy. And I'm just confused. That was just a confuse. I know what it means
That made
after
sense
watching
for
the
me, but
movie.
yeah. Well, it's like, yeah, he's like, be a good little doggy and fetch. And I think like this is the movie that establishes that Freddy needs other people to be scared of him for him to exist or whatever, right? And they really play that up in the Jason versus Freddy movie. And I think it is a good sort of like plot device for Freddy as a character. Like the less people that remember him can't be scared of him, so his powers wane, and he's just kind of like floating around in dream world being like, I can't enter a dream if people don't know who I am. God damn it.
I also had a thought that was like, oh, I'm still on the track at this point in the movie where I think that this kid is the grown-up dream kid. I'm like, is he from a different dimension? Obviously not. I don't know where he's from. They never really established that.
Thought that it was a time travel movie, that Freddy was sending him back in time. And I was like,
Nah, that's crazy.
Yeah, that doesn't. When did they establish that? Yeah.
Nah. It's a random kid that fell asleep on the plane.
Well, he's the last survivor of Springwoods, kids that killed themselves and were killed in their dreams or whatever. That's when we get to Springwood later. And
sometimes when we talk about movies, I'm enlightened. I more makes sense. But the more we talk about this opening sequence, this first act, it makes less sense because they never explain where John Doe came from before he gets blasted through like dream reality into the real world, where he just like wakes up on the side of a road, because that's where like the movie kind of starts. Really,
they do. Well, he's the last survivor from the town that has no children left, and Freddy left him alive on purpose, specifically so that he could go and spread Freddy like a disease, basically, with the ultimate goal of getting his daughter to remember him so that he could enter her mind or whatever. I mean, I'm not saying it makes sense. You are correct, Jason. It's a lot of what, but they at least tried, like there is something there that you're like, I get it, but it still doesn't really make a lot of sense.
I think the movie was more focused on what Orville was saying though, where it's like, they're just trying to create all this extra lore that you don't need to establish in the final movie. Like
a lot of legwork for the last 15 minutes of a Freddy Krueger movie that is the end of his life.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think overall it's a pretty good opener for a Freddy Krueger movie, but it is doing a poor job of setting everything up, because it's a little bit too much for you to take in while also just being a Freddy Krueger dream sequence. A pretty good one though. Like, the falling from the plane. It's
into the house,
the effects are a little dated, but they still look good, and there is that certain level of 80s charm where you're like, oh, he's falling against a matte painting, and it's an effect that you can tell it's an effect, but it's still fun, and I kind of like that more so than like we're gonna strap a camera on you and we're gonna send you out of a real plane, like when they get actors to do that kind of shit. And you're like, I don't know,
Tom Cruise shit.
Yeah.
Tom
Cruise movie, Tom Cruise would have been like, no, I need to actually fight a dream demon in real life.
I need to do it.
Yeah, I'm gonna stay awake for 2 weeks and then jump out of a plane.
We do love matte paintings on this show. We always point them out. I'd like to just talk about a note that the next note in my notes says, Freddy looks awesome in this. So I quit. This has been the show for this week.
Of all the Freddy movies.
I think the reason why I liked it is because
he looks like chewed up bubblegum in this movie, and not wet chewed up, like dried chewed up bubblegum.
I think I liked it because it looked so cohesive, as if it was just a mask he put on. But I do see it from your point of view as well. I do think that I didn't even recognize how not goopy he is. Look at behind Orville.
Yeah, look at
the Dream Warriors.
Look at that.
He looks disgusting.
Yeah. Well, maybe it's a 6th movie, so he's been having that skin, so he kind of just like dry it up a little bit.
He went to Hollywood and got a facial.
He got a facial or some shit. See, look, he got the needles already. Shit.
Well, actually, what he does with those needles is one of the grossest things in the whole series.
I don't really remember this scene.
the
Oh, yeah.
drug addict punk girl from the Dream Warriors, and he
shit.
puts the needles in her arms, and the openings on her arms are like little mouths.
Oh my god.
Gross. It's disgusting. They show it in the credits. They show it again.
Oh
in the
my
credits.
god.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, it's fine. I love a good body horror. I love body horror movies. Some of my favorites.
Yeah. Yeah, he's knocked back into reality. Be a good little dog and fetch. We're introduced to Breckenmeyer, who's a bad boy. He probably wore a Chip and Pepper shirt.
All right, I just want to do a quick side by side comparison, if that's okay with you guys.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
This is the Freddy that Jason loves.
Okay, shut up. You're right, but
and this is the Freddy that I love.
oh my god.
Yeah,
That's from Freddy versus Jason. And that's
counts.
also Jason seeing him with like
No.
okay.
Listen up. My point is still valid. This is not the best Jason Freddy. This is the worst Freddy I've ever seen.
Now I'm playing with power.
He looks like one of the McDonald's kids. Looks like he's gonna. You remember the McDonald's kids from the 90s?
Yeah. He looks like the guy from the Six Flag commercials. The old guy.
Yeah.
I was looking for what it looked like, and you hit the nail
that's
on the head,
exactly
buddy.
what he looks like.
Oh.
Welcome to Six Flags, bitch. Welcome to Six Flags, bitch.
All right. Sorry, that's what I was downloading those two pictures, and I was gonna try and.
No, that was
Photoshop
perfect.
them
I'm glad
together.
you pulled it up. No, I'm glad you pulled it up.
You're right. Okay, so Breckenmeyer's the little badass, like I was talking about. His dad wants him to be a football star, and he says, and I quote, "I don't feel like playing football and raping co-eds." So
Yeah,
thanks for that.
He does say that.
Thanks for that.
I mean, at least he says he doesn't want to do that.
Yeah.
that is good to proclaim in early high school. Also, he's got a little tiny pipe bomb. When I picture a pipe bomb, I usually picture them to be a bit bigger, but he's got a little like firecracker version of a pipe bomb. And then I was like, they're making an awful big deal about this. And of course,
Well, you need
he
it.
comes back.
I think
We'll
the
get-
bigger deal is that the guy, like the dude who is in charge, I guess, I don't know what you would call his position, but the man who is in charge of this orphanage, what is it?
Yeah.
I don't even know what it is. I guess
Yeah.
it's an orphanage.
like a shelter.
It's like
Yeah, I
a
think
shelter.
it's like a youth
For
shelter.
troubled teens.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but he keeps saying
It's
like
that.
this is the 14th time this week that I've confiscated something off of somebody. Where the hell do they keep getting this stuff?
Take it to the arsenal downstairs. In the
And there's a
basement.
literal arsenal at the end. Like they go
Yeah.
down and Yaphet's got the key and he's like, all right, take what you want. She's got like knives, so many knives.
Yeah, the bat with them. Those nails are massive on that bat. Those are
Like
rods
rail-
just sticking out the bat. I'm like, damn.
Railroad spikes. Yeah, it's too much, but it's also that is probably one of the funniest parts is when she's like, here, and she throws her knife and then she just keeps throwing her more and more knives.
Yeah, and I'm like, yo, ninja stars?
and a shuriken.
And
Yeah.
she's accurate with it too. I'm like, I didn't see you practice this shit.
Mhm.
That's
And then
crazy.
you're like, is she in a dream right now? But
No.
it's supposed to be in reality.
Bro,
No, she's in
it's
a
like-
dream.
It's like everyone near the end of the movie awakened their ultra instinct superpower. She's a fucking ninja, and the guy who owns the orphanage, Hulk.
Yeah, he rips the door off.
I'm like, oh my god, you guys should have done this a lot earlier. Oh my goodness.
Well, there's a lot of that in this whole movie where, especially when they're in Springwood, when they get into the bus, we'll get to this in a minute. But when they get there, they can like go to sleep and then get dream messed with. But the town also feels very dreamlike. So this movie has a lot of like, what are the rules? You know, the episode of It's Always Sunny where they
Yeah, but they're also trampling on the rules of the previous installments in a way, or they're trying to pay homage to things and it doesn't quite make sense logically in terms of like Freddy lore, which I always give a pass to these movies because almost every single movie they introduce a new thing or change a thing to make it more interesting or cool. But this one, when they change it, it doesn't necessarily make it interesting or cool. In some cases, it makes it fucking stupid. Like the video game part, I hate. I know you liked it, Jason, but I fucking hate that shit so much when he's like,
no, but the reason I liked it is because like I like cringy memes on the internet. Like I like cringe content. So it gave me that, it scratched that.
I'm
itch.
not
I don't
saying
know
it
if
wouldn't make a great GIF. But
it
makes
was
me
weird, and I don't know if I can ever watch it again. I don't, the cringe might overtake me, but watching it, I was like, what am I? I know in 1991, Nintendo, like the Wizard had come out, the Nintendo movie, and like the Power Glove was like pretty popular. It was one of the first like things that was like memed on because it was so bad, but
I think this was
everybody
just riffing on
had
that.
one.
Whereas those movies were literal commercials for Nintendo games. Like they're like, can we get a big video game company? Like, yeah, but the entire last act has to be an advertisement for Super Mario Brothers 3. Please and thank you.
Before it came out.
Yeah.
Hey, probably sold a lot of copies.
Definitely.
Yeah. So anyway, John shows up to this orphanage. He gets brought in.
We meet our three main.
Yeah, we meet Carlos and Teresa.
Troubled teens. They're not orphans. They clearly have parents that they just like send them. It's almost like military school or something. Like it's like a weird thing, like where you stay.
Like Maggie works there though. I didn't realize she was a teen. She must be like 19 because she looks like she's 25. Like the main.
She does work there. I think she's in her 20s, right? I mean, do they establish how old she is?
Well, that's what I'm wondering because I thought Freddy could only do dream stuff to teens and kids.
True.
He does a dream to Yaphet Kotto, and Yaphet.
He does, to Yaphet Kotto, but is that the first time a full adult goes into?
I think that he just prefers to go after teens. I think that's like I don't think that it's out of sight of his abilities. I think maybe you have to believe in Freddy for him to be able to pop into your nightmares.
That's a good point.
But yeah, I actually have never thought about that before, Jason.
Because the thing where you have to be afraid of,
I've never quite thought of that before.
The thing where you have to be afraid of him is established in like the first movie. I'm pretty sure. I thought that's been around for a long time.
It's like somebody plants the seed of Freddy in your head. They mention it's like if the three of us went to a bar to sit down and have a drink, and I was like, man, I had the craziest dream last night. There was this dude in a Christmas sweater and like one of those old timey detective hats, and he had a gardening shear on his hand, and he was trying to get me. And then Orville was like, "I've heard about this. Was his name Frederick Krueger?" Like, what? Who?
Got to Orville going home and falling asleep in front of his
and it's over.
Yeah,
and then it's over for me.
It's over for all of us at that point because I
it's true.
it to you that awoken the memory, and then Jason ends up being like, "Wait, I think you guys are talking about Freddy Krueger. I heard he got burned in a fire 20 years ago."
I don't believe it at all, but the seed's still there. But I don't believe I'm the one that doesn't believe it all, and then he gets
then you end up dead in a bathtub.
He turns me into a motorcycle or some stupid shit.
Yeah. I think a lot of the
mows the lawn with you. You're like eating the grass.
I think a lot of the horror movie killers just go after teens. Like Jason does it too. They come to camp, run away.
Jason has a reason.
Yeah, he does have a reason. Yeah. Freddy doesn't have a reason. I mean, he's
got a reason.
He's a pedophile, you know what I'm saying? Like,
he's a pedophile. He's a pedophile, but he got all the parents banded together to burn him alive.
This is true.
So he wanted to exact revenge by killing all their kids.
This movie changes
and not them.
Unusual ways.
This movie changes.
Right?
This movie changes that lore. This movie changes that lore to he's taking revenge on the parents because they took his daughter away. He doesn't actually
took his
he's not actually
they murdered him,
which I kind of appreciate because that's one of the things that I really dislike about Freddy Krueger is that he's like,
I get sexual gratification from this.
I'm like, oh, thank you. Why do I like this character again? Like every time I'm reminded of it, I'm like, like I drew this picture of Freddy Krueger behind me, and like I'll be drawing it and be like, ugh, I forgot that he's a pervert.
Yeah, it's almost like the human Freddy is worse than the demon Freddy. You know what I'm saying? Because he just wants to murder, but the other one just wants to like destroy all innocence.
That room in the basement that they show, I'm glad they only showed flashes of it. But I did something interesting that I started thinking about is they should make a Freddy game that's like the Jason game, but you get
about that
different
every
kinds
time I
of
play the
gloves.
Jason game. I'm like,
you get different gloves, the glove level ups, because they show like 6 different gloves, and I was like,
one's his punch.
Show the gloves.
Got spikes on it.
One has little like hooks on the end.
One has glow sticks. That's when he goes out clubbing.
He goes to the race.
But the kids, we don't need that. You don't need that glove. Like it's crazy. Nah, it was a very that was one of the most disturbing scenes in the show. I'm sure we'll get to it, but it's like that 5-minute block of that flashback. I'm like, whoa, this is dark as hell. know what taking this turn. My God.
Yeah, I wish that it was more of a like Freddy turned bad because he was just a serial killer and his wife found out and they took his daughter away, so he took revenge because his daughter got taken. So he's like, if
My daughter gets taken, all your daughters get taken, and your sons forever, and then the world's children will also die.
I like that better than him being like,
Also, I'm a pervert. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah, it's true.
Sorry,
It's true.
bitch.
yeah.
Sorry.
I want to first fun fact of the evening. Maggie Burrows, who's kind of becomes final girl, spoilers. She's played by Lisa Zane, sister of Hollywood star and star of Titanic, Billy Zane, and star of Zoolander.
You know what?
Billy Zane.
Now that you say that, I'm never not going to be able to see that because she looks a lot like Billy.
She looks like Billy Zane,
especially
She's
when
got
she has
smoky
like
eyes.
when they like put her in the pigtails and
The
her
blackest hair you've ever seen.
her hair
Yeah.
goes back and it's like slick like when he's in Titanic. Like, oh, okay. It's Billy Zane in a schoolgirl dress.
You're like, I hope this doesn't awaken something in me.
Yeah. I gotta go watch Titanic after this. I put the diamond in the coat. I put the coat on her. That's my favorite line of that movie.
Yeah, so John's suffering amnesia. He meets Maggie. She's curious about his mysterious past after we see John Doe sort of wandering around Springwood. All the children are gone. The adults are behaving erratically, except for
Wait, you're skipping ahead so much. Come on.
no, I'm this is all the first act up till where John meets Maggie. It's all
Oh.
the first part of the movie.
Okay. But you're talking about the town. They don't get to the town until later.
No, but he's like walking down the road. I mean, and then he gets picked up and brought to the shelter.
Right. The cops are like, this crackhead. let's pick him up, put him in the
Well,
car.
they literally do that because they roll by and he's opening like some candy or something. Like, look at that crackhead.
His
And I'm
pep
like,
pills. He has them earlier. You can see it says pep pill on it. I'm like, oh, this
right.
guy's
Oh
gonna-
yeah.
Or it says like stay awake or something on the box.
The first thing he says to Maggie is like, I can't sleep. Do you have any coffee or Coke? I mean cola.
I meant to drink. Yeah.
I meant to drink.
I mean, I don't know if you guys have ever been awake for several days in a row, but it does cause you to act fucking weird. Like you don't act normally. And when he's like, he's like, I don't know. And she's like, what's your name? And he's like, I don't fucking know. And then he's like smacking things and he's like sitting in the chair and picking it up and stuff. I'm like, yeah, this is kind of accurate. Like if you stay awake for 3 days in a row, you just start doing weird shit that doesn't make any sense. And then like if you do sleep and wake up and remember it, you're like, why were they doing that? You don't have a reason. You're just losing your mind and your brain is just doing weird shit just to like have some sort of semblance of something happening to keep you awake. Anyway, not that I have experience with that or anything.
No comment. So we do get the thing where like he does finally fall asleep, but he talks about Freddy to Maggie. She has like a kind of like a little bit of a dream, but she's remembering a little girl. Or sorry, not remembering. She's having a dream of a little girl. We don't know
He's
yet.
having the POV perspective of running around in a garden, and he's dreaming of the little girl, telling him, like, "You're the last one. I'll never tell anything," or whatever. They're having a shared dream, sort of thing.
They're having a shared dream.
The logic of the dream is tied together.
There's that weird cut to him in his dream, but in reality, walking up the stairs. But he's like just walking up nothing. I thought that was a weird thing to put in the movie.
Come on. We all remember Dream Warrior when he's being puppeteered.
That's
like,
true.
That shit happens all the time in Freddy movies. It's not that weird.
I thought it was really funny when he like comes to like sleepwalking and he knocks the orderly out the window, but then there's just a little roof right there, and the guy gets up. He's like, "What the hell?" And his reaction is just, "What the hell?"
He's just kind of slightly upset. Like he's not even mad. He's like, "What the fuck, man?
What the hell, man?"
I was just trying to check on you. Yeah, I do like that sort of bait and switch where you're like, did he just knock a guy to his death out the window? And then you're like, oh no, it's just 2 feet. He's okay. He's just gonna dust himself off.
The psychiatrist believes in the dream stuff. I think I mean psychiatrist as in what's the guy's name?
Yaphet Kotto.
Yeah,
I don't know his character name. I just know his real name.
I have it written later.
His character name is Doc. So I guess
it is Doc.
Call him Doc. Why the fuck then did Freddy Krueger at one point not say, "What's up, Doc"? Why didn't he say it? He's already doing every other Looney Tune thing in this.
Just has a carrot that has the same like consistency as his face.
Maybe they
Why do
tried
you know
and,
the Yaphet Kotto
Warner
name?
like, no fucking way.
Is this guy from a bunch of stuff?
Why do I know him by name?
Yeah.
He's
Just
an
from
alien.
this
He's an
movie?
alien in Alien.
Oh, he's from Alien.
He's like my favorite movie ever made, so I know everybody from that movie.
No, absolutely.
He's in like a lot of stuff, but like not a ton of stuff that I'm overly familiar with, but I am very familiar with.
I know when you're familiar with a particular actor because you'll call them.
He also has
their
a
acting name.
memorable name. Like his name
Yeah,
is very memorable.
I'm in the phase of that where like it's on the tip of my tongue. But every time I try to say it, I'm like, I'm gonna butcher that.
Yeah.
So I wrote it down. Yaphet Kotto. Probably butchered it. Right. Springfield is giving Silent Hill a little bit. Springwood. Kind of got a
Springfield. How the hell did I get here?
Well, we saw in the opening credits that
That's
him and
true.
Jason were hanging out.
Also, that one Freddy Krueger Halloween episode of The Simpsons is very funny. If you haven't seen it,
Yeah,
check it out.
it's from like the second one too. It's Groundskeeper Willie is Freddy Krueger, and it's one of the best.
I'm coming for your children, but you can't save them in their dreams. And then Chief Wiggum is like, "Oh yeah, how you gonna get him? Skeleton power?" Because he's like a flaming skeleton.
It's one of the best Nightmare on Elm Street movies. The Simpsons Halloween special version. Better than this, I would say, because it's more traditional. He turns into a giant like
oh my god, I forgot Roseanne Barr's in this. Anyway, we are introduced to all the key players of the movie.
Yes.
The original script for this was meant to have way more, because most of them do, right? Like this is sort of the smallest cast of a Freddy Krueger movie, mostly because you always consider just the teenagers as the characters because they're there as cannon fodder to die. But this movie has a psychiatrist and a social worker as well that are kind of part of that key group, but you don't really, as a Freddy Krueger movie watcher, you're like, these guys don't matter. They're not really part of this, except they are. So
because of the opening sequence with the plane in the house and then the giant like double fight scene at the end, there's only 3 Freddy Krueger style kills in this.
Right.
Where he does some like
we were introduced to all these characters, and you kind of think that John Doe is going to be the main character, and then you're introduced to the other 2, right? Or the other 3. Spencer, Lacey, and Carlos, and they all have sort of distinct personalities. Carlos has sort of a unique trait, which is that he has a hearing aid where he's entirely deaf when he takes out his hearing aid, which is kind of a little weird and maybe now problematic, but I think kind of a cool addition in terms of like representation, but also a cool mechanic for his actual death sequence, which I think they did really creatively. And you look at a lot of Freddy Krueger movies, and sometimes you get through a whole movie and you're like, I liked it, but nothing really that stood out to me that I thought was creative and interesting. I think that the entire idea of what he did in that sequence was pretty cool and interesting and like fun, where you're like, I'm having fun with this, but it's also kind of causing my butt to clench a little bit. I'm like, oh, get out of here, Carlos. Don't get too comfy, Carlos. You're going to die. Do you guys have a favorite of the teens? This is another thing that like I've really wanted to do for a long time, which is like everybody get together, sit down, put on a horror movie, a slasher you've never seen before, and then you play the drinking game of like everybody picks 3 characters that you want to survive to the end, and if yours go, you have to drink if yours dies or whatever. Like it's like an actual drinking game that exists.
We play Fantasy Survivor, and you have like
except with slasher. Yeah, except slashers.
You pick 3 people. But I find that like a lot of slashers, the final girl is pretty obvious a lot of times. But these older 80s movies, you don't really know. And this has
especially when they're trying to go against the tropes, right? Because this is where like everybody you have the tropes, and then you have the movies that are trying to bend the tropes, right? Like there's the classic ones that I'm sure we could list them all right now, but every time you watch one of these ones from the late 80s, early 90s, they're really trying their hardest to bend those tropes to be like, we can't do the thing that everybody thinks we're going to do. So we'll like do the opposite. So the point that it gets all the way around again, it's like the opposite is just doing the trope. for you. If we do the trope, no one's gonna see the trope coming.
Yeah, I like John Depp's character. He's my favorite team. He was in the movie for 5 seconds. Because I remember when I was looking up the movie, I'm like, John Depp's in this? Is crazy. 5 seconds. I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
I think he was reprising his because he's the first death in the first movie.
Is he? Okay, see, I don't even remember that. I don't even remember that. That's crazy because I'm just like, but
I think that was supposed to be he had gotten some. I think he would have been on 21 Jump Street at this point in his career, maybe just starting to be in movies, and it was probably like he's gonna pop off. He was in the first movie. It'd be like Kevin Bacon coming back for like the 5th Friday the 13th movie, right?
Right.
That never happened. In fact, side note, I saw Kevin Bacon on TikTok talking about his top like 20 horror movies. Didn't even say Friday the 13th.
Not Tremors? Did you say Tremors? You better say Tremors.
He didn't say Tremors.
That's wild.
Maybe he just
or
was
Hollow
saying,
Man.
Maybe
That's
wait,
wild.
his own movies or movies that he likes.
Movies that he likes.
Oh well, he's probably like being humble.
Humble. Tremors was lit.
Yeah, behind him
Tremors
there's
is an amazing movie.
yeah,
I
in
love
the interview
Tremors.
behind him there's a Tremors poster, a Friday the 13th poster, and a Hollow Man poster.
Yeah.
But also he dies in that movie. How could he come back? But I guess Johnny Depp comes back in this. But that goes to what I was going to say earlier was that they set up this weird thing in this movie where he kills Carlos and then Carlos is in the TV being like, Spencer, you stupid fucking stoner, wake up. And you're like, wait, he just died. He got his head blown up or whatever. What they wanted to do was have all the characters from the other movies who had died come back and be like this dream team that are going to come fuck Freddy Krueger up. So every time you die, you become part of this like collective of souls that Freddy's absorbing, which he is absorbing them in the movie, right?
Yeah, that's a thing from the other movies too. Like there's that scene in like
he's like,
3 or 4.
they're like all over his body.
They're all in him,
faces.
but there's the theater. They go to the theater and they're watching the movie that they're in, and all the people that have died so far, like in the audience.
Damn.
So
it is
a thing.
That was a different movie.
The Dream Team.
You're thinking of Werewolf in London.
No. I'm the Nightmare on Elm Street where he goes through the theater and there's all the kids there that had died previously in the movie.
Oh, but that happens in Werewolf in London.
That does happen in Werewolf of London as well, but that they're all in the same
memory
row.
of something from another Freddy movie. Maybe they're the same movie.
All of these.
Listen, you're probably right. I'm sorry if I'm wrong. I'm wrong.
I watched Immaculate with Sydney Sweeney, and it was supposed to be this like avant-garde sort of new take on a horror, and it was just a horror movie with a final girl, and it was so obvious for like half of the movie that's how it was going to end up because I've been watching so much horror that I was just like, oh, final girl. Okay, good, great. On to the next.
You've reached the next level, Jason. You're in the 5-timers club. I'll get you a jacket next time I see you. Now you can predict.
I did watch The Lawnmower Man with a Horrible Fever though, and I'll tell you,
you couldn't predict that one. I mean, that's a little
wow.
Bit, yeah.
There's like a slasher part of that movie.
You also afterwards said, I think this is the greatest movie I've ever seen. And I was like, what? Lawnmower Man? You know, there's a scene where a rich lady fucks somebody with a mental deficit, don't you?
Yeah, that was my favorite part. Sorry. No.
Anyway, we should get back to the movie.
Freddy
Krueger, Johnny Depp's cameo. Again, another cameo. This movie is full of them. And I think
we haven't quite got there yet.
I wanted to ask you guys if you had like a favorite, and I mean, Orville, you said Johnny Depp, which I valid. Good answer. If you had a favorite of the kids that you're like, okay, I want this kid to win.
Yeah, Spencer. It's probably Spencer.
Spencer, yeah.
Yeah. I love that actor. He's lit.
Yeah, I liked the Breckenmeyer kill just because it was so weird. The bouncing around effect that they used, it made me feel weird.
My answer
not necessarily
is Carlos.
A bad way.
I like Carlos.
Yeah.
You like Carlos?
I think he's kind of cute, and I like that he's concerned about everybody. You know, like he's like he seems to be sort of looking out for people, but also like he's not too sheepish that he's not going to be like, hey, fuck you. You know, he'll tell you to fuck off, but he also has like genuine concern for your well-being.
I see.
He also seemed to have the most relatable trauma, where you're like, I think that I can relate to this to a certain degree. if it's heightened, right? Obviously, if it's heightened, then it would be like a heightened version of what I think a lot of people go through in terms of like fear of their own parents. But I think it's also implied that he was deafened by getting like beaten by his mom or something, which is like not so relatable to me, but like, you know, being scared of your parents is something that I can relate to. In his direction than Tracy's at the end, which you're like, okay, that's
that one's
next
wild.
level. Yeah, maybe too much for this Looney Tunes Freddy Krueger movie. You're getting real now all of a sudden. I don't like it. Yeah, I don't know. I think he was the one that I liked the most, and I also think he had the coolest death out of everybody.
I think that he had the most traditional Freddy death for sure.
did.
It was unsettling. It was gross. There was body horror with the like weird his hearing aid
His
turns into like a tick,
a bug.
His ears, his head's like, you know, they used a good body horror effect for his head to like start pulsating and then it explodes.
Also,
but at the same time, it was a little hokey with the hearing aid turned up to max and dropping the pins. And
I think that's way more creative than the stupid bullshit that was going on with Super Spencer.
Yeah,
that's fair.
I think the idea of like playing around with the sound and stuff is really cool and interesting, and you kind of know where it's going, right? And there's also an anticipation that's building there that isn't really building elsewhere, where you know that he's going to go bigger and bigger, and you're like, wow, what is he going to do to get this kid's head to blow up? Because you kind of know that that's where it's leading towards. But also just like the shot composition of that entire sequence was really good too. I feel like we're getting a little too ahead of ourselves, but I think it's the best part.
Let me just set the scene, because like Carlos's death is the first real
sure
death.
Yeah, we'll talk about it once you set the scene for us.
John Doe and Maggie, they want to figure out what this all means. So they go to Springwood, they take a van, they're kind of talking about it, and then the three other teens pop up. We got stowaways. So they all go together, and when they get there, there's a weird carnival happening with a bunch of insane people, insane adults who have lost their minds. So just reading my notes and reading the synopsis that I came up with and talking to you guys, in reality the adults have gone insane. I thought that they drove into like a dream world going back to Springwood, and when there's
definitely something going on, because they can't
find their way out. Right?
They can't leave. Like they're trying to leave.
They can't leave, and they go to the original house on Elm Street, and it's all crazy and fucked up. And I'm pretty sure they've shown that house, and it has been crazy and fucked up, but not like this.
Well, okay.
Anyway,
they show the house. They go into the house, right? Because the town is mostly abandoned. They go into the house.
Just one sec before we get to that, we meet Roseanne and Tom Arnold.
I forgot that you love Roseanne and Tom Arnold.
I don't love them.
Child of the 90s.
It caught me. You're a child of the 90s. We're all children.
Sorry, I meant to say pervert of the 90s.
Okay. Listen, they showed up, and my head spun because I wasn't expecting that.
It is a weird, like, left field. Like,
it's such a weird.
Why are they in this for 2 seconds? Yeah.
Roseanne at the time was most known
crazy.
for singing the national anthem horribly. That's what
I think she was probably best known for Roseanne.
For Roseanne, right? Yes, but I don't. But when she was with Tom Arnold, she was on this like weird tear where she was constantly in the tabloids for doing all kinds of crazy shit.
She kind of got like. I think now she's a terrible person, but I think back then she got treated pretty poorly by like tabloidy and like media stuff. Right. Like she was caricaturized as just like this disgusting, monstrous fat woman. And you're like, that's not even really the case. You know, it's not the case at all. She's like a fairly normal woman.
She was a legitimate good.
Now
Canadian.
She's a psychopath Trump supporter.
Well, she's a Trump supporter now, but
they're eating the babies, Tucker.
She was a liberal in the 90s, and most of her comedy was about like how stupid it is to have to be relegated to housewife. Like that's what her whole bit was. That's why Roseanne was so poignant and so sort of ahead of its time in the early 90s, because it's like
it was relatable. It had
showing a real family, not just like the housewife.
And she was the main. She was the main character, right? Like there weren't a ton of sitcoms that had the female lead
lead-
was
yeah.
the title character as well.
It's like this and The Nanny.
Yeah, and the nanny was about a nanny.
The
It's
Nanny was
the
The Nanny.
I think was Murphy
Uh,
Brown around this time too. That was I think-
Murphy Brown was also around this time. Murphy Brown was great. I'm surprised they haven't done a Legacy sequel, but I think Candice Bergen has multiple sclerosis or something. She came out at the Oscars and looked like she wasn't doing too well, but
It
she's
also
still
seems like
alive.
somebody who she's like, I don't want to do that.
Right.
Like, why would I do that?
She
Allegedly.
was on like the second episode of Saturday Night Live. Like she's been working for 50 years.
Mhm.
Right. So they go to this nightmare circus. Everybody's old. They meet those guys. Then they sort of split off into two groups.
Can I say that a town fair with no children and all adults doing all the child things is like a Goosebumps premise, like from a
That's what it
Goosebumps.
looked like?
That's
It looks
it's
like
filmed like a
Goosebumps.
Goosebumps episode. It's like an R.L. Stein level where I'm like, this is not that scary. This is like a you better beware, you're in for a scare. Like I'm not freaked out here, R.L. Stein. This is weird and goofy. Because like usually Freddy Krueger heightens the comedy the horror as it goes. The things are supposed to become scarier, right? It starts out goofy and gets scarier. This one just kind of keeps getting goofier.
It
and
gets goofier, yeah.
as it goes. I don't know if you agree with me, but it's a
No
Goosebumps.
idea.
It would be called something like The Town of Old Folks or something. Like all those Goosebumps, like The Night My Hands Fell Off, or like they always had weird.
Back of the Killer Dummy. The
Don't go in the
Mask.
basement, or the Tower of Terror. Yeah, Old City.
I kept all my piss jars for a year.
Okay, that's actually
Ooh.
horrifying.
Sorry, that is actually like a Freddy thing that he would do. That's weird. Anyway, Breckenmeyer busts out some weed. I'm surprised. Like his kill actually starts out like it was going to be a cool trip out, and I got uncomfortable. I was like, is this going to be really like midsummery? It wasn't. But it also felt like an anti-drug message when he first smokes the weed when they get back in the van. She's like, put that out.
I think,
And then in the back,
anti-drug was like a big thing in this
was a big
era,
thing.
right? Like because everybody was. It was like
this movie was for teens.
And it was like I think at the end of the Reagan administration where like the war on drugs was real and people were in the streets being like, we need to make sure we get all the pot out of the street. You're like, what?
But
pot?
fill the small neighborhoods with crack.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was his plan.
Yeah.
Reagan. But like I did appreciate the joke of like, this is your brain on drugs. Like I even remember that, and that wasn't aimed at my generation. I just remember. I will say that commercials kind of scared me when I was a kid. I was like freaked out by drugs. I think that was aimed at me, like a 5-year-old child being like, "Oh my god, the eggs! They're being so violent to the eggs."
This is your
Orville,
brain.
are you familiar with this commercial?
Yeah, I know exactly what commercial that is. It's been referenced so much. I remember it referenced in Harold and Kumar.
Right.
When he takes up the shotgun, it's like, no, I can't feel a thing. No, like what the hell?
Yeah.
Yeah, when I
forgot
saw
they
it
did
first,
that.
I couldn't tell. I was
Yeah.
just like, are they putting this in the movie because that's just what the message was of the era, or are they making fun of the like? I couldn't tell because the way it was delivered
It felt
to
balanced. Yeah.
Yeah,
felt
I was like,
making
hmm.
fun of it.
I think they knew that like teens were going to be watching it, so they were like,
Oh, for
this
sure.
weed thing. These kids, they like that weed. Also, the joint he's smoking is like the comically small.
yeah.
Also,
what the
when you smoke weed, you don't go on an acid trip. Like,
That too,
right?
Which was awesome. When they hit the Inagata Vida, I was like, "Yep, this is it." And then it wasn't it. So anyway, they find a picture of Freddy, like a drawing in crayon at one point, and then when they're in the van, I think one of my favorite like gags in this movie is when Carlos is like trying to open the map, and it just keeps opening and opening until it's like
in
coming
my-
back,
in my-
and then it's just written in blood, "You're fucked." I was like, "What? Are they in a dream or not?"
I wrote in my notes that the map gag should have kept going for a little bit longer. Like
That'd
he's
be
like
crazy.
like he opens the back of the van and it's like like so much map and he's like trapped in like a crazy maze of map. That would have been good.
That'd
but,
be wild.
you know. There's this movie where like I can't remember exactly what it's called, but it's like about a man who makes like an entire world out of cardboard, and he keeps making it more elaborate and elaborate and elaborate to the point that it gets like out of hand, where he's in like a whole world of cardboard. And I was like, imagine Carlos's whole thing. Like they set up the deaf thing and they don't even do it. They're like, then he dies in a giant map. You think he's gonna have some sort of death gag, but no, a map kills him. Yeah.
So they get to they split off at this point. Maggie and John Doe go to like kind of a school, and they see like plaques on the wall that I think was meant to be all the kills that Freddy's done. There's like a woman who's like teaching a class of invisible kids, which
it's a man.
No, it's a woman downstairs. No, the old lady who was like, "Come over here and sit down."
Oh, that's a different part. That's like when they go to the orphanage. There's a man who's like, all right, in the year 1493, Freddy's killed the 7 C's or whatever.
I wish he kept going with that. I'm just like, continue with the nursery rhyme.
What happens in 1494?
Yeah.
But he keeps like interstitialing references to other kills, right?
Yeah, and he gives like a little bit of information to them, but they're also like, this guy's clearly insane because he's teaching a room full of. But then he's also teaching people that aren't there, and then he talks to them directly at points, which is like unnerving, but it's not scary. You know, I think even as a kid, I'd be like,
but he's still spreading the word of Freddy Krueger.
Yes,
that's the problem.
There's no kids, and this is the other thing. Is like Jason's point earlier is like I thought he could only affect children, which is like the movie would basically say, he can only kill kids, or he only wants to kill kids at least.
Yeah. Like, I don't have fun killing these old people. All their nightmares are just about losing at the Price is Right. There's only so many times I can catch an old woman's hair in the wheel. Like,
that's so crazy.
Yeah. So the others end up at the original Elm Street home, which is pretty iconic. It comes up a few times throughout the movies. I wrote this movie feels pretty iconic compared to the others. Maybe this is the one most people
joke about all the old people dreaming about losing at the Price is Right. That's pretty funny. That would be pretty funny. Like he just has to keep using the different game types to kill old people to the point that he's like, I'm so bored. I need to kill other people.
Just keeps making them play Plinko with their own hearts. Or the yodeling one, but you fall off into a pit of spikes. Right. So they end up in the home, and I wrote, this movie feels pretty iconic compared to the others. Maybe this one is the one that most people remember. Freddy is full Bugs Bunny as well. And Carlos is so tired, he just needs to go lie down. He needs to find a room and crash, even though they're like, the thing that we're running from kills you in your dreams.
Well, they haven't seen any evidence of it yet.
Have they? Yeah, do they know about Freddy? I guess they probably don't.
All they know is that dude was singing 1 billion bottles of beer on the wall and being like, you can't fall asleep or he'll kill you. And they're like, what do you guys think that even means?
I'm gonna kill you with a bottle.
They implicitly believe him for some reason. Like if somebody said, don't go to sleep, he'll get you in your dreams, and I didn't know anything about Freddy Krueger, and I had never met any, and I lived in a halfway house, I'd be like, yeah, this guy's on fucking drugs. Like, I'm going to bed. I need sleep. But they believe him for some reason. Maybe it's because the social worker is also clearly like believing him in some capacity or whatever, so they feel a little bit more reasonable about believing them. But they all are also like, let's go to sleep. Like, let's all go to sleep. But you're right. The dialogue is all over the place. The editing here, it seems like there's a lot of stuff out of order. Like Tracy is being like, he told us not to go to sleep. It's hard enough to keep our eyes open without you fucking blowing weed smoke up our butts. and you're like, okay, well, are they trying to stay awake or not? And then Carlos is like, I'm gonna fall asleep in this pile of maps. And then he's like, the first thing he does is like, I'm gonna find a bed so that I can sleep. And he finds the dustiest bed that ever existed.
The dustiest,
like hitting the bed and the dust is flying everywhere.
Yeah. But yeah, you're right. They haven't seen Freddy Krueger. They've never had an experience with Freddy Krueger that would make them afraid. They are just trying to escape, which it's not a prison. You know, it's a halfway house. Like you can get out. It's like a social center for wayward teens. I feel like they can leave if they want to. Like they can't legally hold you there, right? Or is it like a juvie? I don't even know. I don't know.
I think it's like a shelter or like an orphanage. That's what I. The Maggie, we do find out later that like she got put there and just stayed there and became a worker, a social worker.
Yes, like you go to university and then you're like,
8
I'm
years
become
for
a
that.
professor instead of leaving this university. I'm going to become part of this university.
Right. So we can finally talk about. I wrote for in reference to Carlos. He's getting click-clacked for sure. How creative will it be?
I'd say very.
I
I can't really name. I can't name too many other Freddy kills in the entirety of the season, or not the season,
The season of
the movie,
Might as well.
the movies that I think kind of is better than this. There's a few, but I think this one is really good. It's on the level with the one from Your Picture, Orville, the drug addict. It's like he's like, you want to get high or whatever, and he pulls out his crazy syringe fingers. Like,
Yeah.
that was a really good one, and I think that this is sort of on the level of that, where it's kind of shocking and it gets playful, and it does get a little bit goofy. I think this is where the tone really shifts to cartoon land. Where you're like, oh, when he's like, he turns to the camera and he's like, shh, nobody, I'm gonna sneak up on him. And he's like dancing behind him and like taking his hat off and stuff. You're like, oh, Freddy's just being a dick now. I don't know.
Orville, do you want to tell us about this death? Do you want to tell us about this? How creative this death is?
First of all, when the lame line when you just like, hey, can I borrow this, or what's behind your ear, and he takes it off. I'm like, is that how you're just gonna kill him? You're just gonna cut out his ear, you jerk?
Under me your ear.
Yeah, what the heck? But when my guy put it back on and it turned into the bug, I thought it was so creative that everything was just so loud, even though there's a lot of stuff that are much louder than the things he's actually afraid of.
Yeah.
This is one of my favorite scenes. This is the scene that I had the most problem with, because I feel like they could have went a lot further with it. Like, especially when he was dropping the pin, like he drops one pin, he said no, he just caught it, and it's like, okay, cool. He's about to drop a shit ton of pins. They were all supposed to sound like, I don't know, nukes. Like, I was getting ready to turn down my TV. I was gonna be like, yo, this is gonna be the loudest scene ever. And they
unplug your headphones.
and
I had headphones
weird...
on, and I had the same moment where I was like, am I gonna get my ears blown out right now?
Exactly. I wanted that. I wanted to feel that. And when they fell, I'm just like, okay, they're loud, but like they're not as destructive as it with the tension was building up to be. And then he's yelling, please don't. I'm like, you're gonna make yourself go deaf. You know how loud you're being right now? And to dodge it, he jumps on the ground. His 135-pound body slamming against the ground. Your head would explode. It didn't. Well, moving along with the torture, when Freddy came up to him, oh my god! I started scratching the nail.
Right. I think you're right though. Like, imagine he was like, he did yell like, hey, and then he's like, but then he like covers his mouth, and the whole time he's just covering his mouth the whole time. That could have been kind of cool too. Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted that. No sound, quiet place.
I do, but I love the like when the water's dropping and he's like, where's it coming from? What the fuck? Oh god.
We mentioned this earlier in the show, but before all this happens, before he gets his ear cut off, there's the Q-tip bit, and I thought this movie they were gonna up the gore, but that might be the like worst thing in this movie because of how graphic
that's one of those things
is.
That you can feel it, right?
Kind
it's
of,
like
yeah.
It's like if you see someone getting their fingernails peeled off in a movie, you're like, oh my fingers! Like you can imagine what the pain, because I'm sure everybody here has accidentally stuffed a Q-tip too far in their ear and been like,
oh yeah, for sure.
Your toes curl up and you're like, and you gag a little bit. What have I done?
You lose HP.
Yeah. One of your eyes rolls to the
HP.
back of your head, you faint.
Yeah.
Shit.
Just me?
Yeah, I think it's just you. I think you went way too far. The most I've ever done is put it so far. I went, whoa.
Yeah, I can't hear you. What did you say?
What did you say?
But yeah, I
no
think
eardrum on one side.
his mom made him deaf by sticking a Q-tip in his ear or something. But is it because she was abusive? I guess. Is it because she was too aggressive while practicing hygiene practices? Maybe. I don't know. But she seemed scary in the nightmare. But it's Freddy. He's heightening everything, right? He's making it your worst nightmare version of everything that you can possibly experience. Because he seemed kind of excited to see his mom until she was like,
Don't talk to me like that.
And she like slaps him so hard that he's like, oh fuck. What the fuck? Like he did something bad. He just stole some candy or something from the corner store. And she's gonna clean his ears out to make sure that she can lecture him and he'll hear it. I do agree with you that the pins dropping the second batch I really thought was going to be much more explosive.
Crazy.
But Freddy with like the weird like when he's stretching out the board.
Oh,
I'm like,
yes.
I'm watching it. I'm like, I understand how they did this. Still works. It still looks good.
It looked cool.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's funny because you know what he's going to do because his hand is a claw.
Mhm.
I think he also goes like tap to tap, tap to tap,
Yeah.
tap on it as well.
And he's like, don't do it. But in Freddy, to his credit, says nothing this entire time. He doesn't.
Huh?
Yeah, he's just kind of like,
Yeah, and I'm like,
until he finally says, what do you say? Like,
Nice to hear from you, Carlos.
Yeah.
and you're like,
nice to hear from you, Carlos.
what a lame line. Another time
Yeah.
you're like, oh man,
It
Freddy.
gave me a little chuckle, so I
Yeah.
enjoyed it, but it was very lame.
Yeah. So we cuts back to Breckenmeyer. He sees the souls of the dead in the TV. Carlos is in the TV now, and he falls asleep. And then it goes back over to John and Maggie. This is when they see the old lady who remembers the Krueger child, but she won't give up the name. John may be Fred's own grown-up child from an alternate universe that's 10 years in the future. That's what I speculated. Tracy gets to them, and we move back over to Spencer. This is where we get the Johnny Depp drug PSA. And then Freddy shows up and hits him in the face with a frying pan, I think.
Yeah.
And then Inagata Davida starts playing, and you start
So
getting like a
Orville, you
cartoon
said you were
trailer.
like you didn't realize the connection, right, of Johnny Depp being in the first movie.
Yeah,
Were
yeah.
you like, what the fuck? Like, were you
I
like,
was like,
why-
I was like, really, like, what the fuck? Yo, and I'm just like, yo, you know, he's gonna be the next Freddy Krueger, right? He's gonna be Edward Scissorhands, but not Freddy Krueger, but pretty much the same
Yeah.
thing. Like, that's kind of crazy.
Freddy Krueger, another scissor-handed man.
Another
Yeah,
scissor-handed man. Yeah,
The two of them should have a duel.
they should. That'd be crazy.
Because like I know that he's in it, right? So I'm like, okay. To me, I'm like, what a nice guy Johnny Depp is for showing up. Like that was like how all I could feel was like like Rob Shea probably called him and was like, Johnny, can you please? It'll be like an hour on Tuesday. We'll just film a second. Robert's gonna hit you with a rubber frying pan, and then that's it. And he was probably like, okay, yeah, I'll do it.
Okay, I'll do it.
I mean, Johnny
And
Depp shows
then
up in
Orville's
weird.
like, what the fuck? Why is Johnny Depp in this?
Johnny Depp was
I
in
love
the
that
first.
contrast. That was so funny.
Johnny Depp was in the first 21 Jump Street remake, like reboot movie, and he was also in two bullshit Kevin Smith movies as the
That's 'cause
worst
he's
character
friends
ever.
he's
I know,
friends
and
with
his
Kevin Smith.
his daughter's in those. But like, I think Johnny Depp is just like a down to earth kind of, as far as Hollywood
Yeah.
actors go,
You're
kind of guy.
a pal with him, and you say, Johnny, do you want to come do this? And he's like, well, I'm supposed to be in Tuscany that weekend, but I guess not.
That's pretty good.
He seems like a pretty chill guy. He does drink Mega
Amica?
Plates, after
Amica?
all. A Mega Plate.
Amica?
I had a
Amica?
large glass of wine. Yes.
Orville,
Anyway,
you should have been around when the
trial
Amber
was
Heard
happening.
trial
Trial
was
was
happening.
happening? Oh,
We
man.
could not stop. We could not stop quoting.
Oh man, it was a wild time.
Yeah.
It was a
We could not
wild
stop.
time.
If you go back to like probably 10 episodes during that summer, I think it was last summer or the summer before at this point, 2 summers ago. Anyway,
a while ago,
it was what we were just
Ripping into it on.
here on
Do you know
Hey,
if
did
she
you see
was
this
wearing
one?
Amica cream that day?
Amica?
Amica cream?
Amica cream?
What is Amica? I don't know what Amica is. Amica?
Yeah.
Him getting pulled into the TV kind of reminded me of a Welcome to Primetime Bitch esque moment.
Right.
But it's a video game.
Not as good. Not nearly as good as Welcome to Prime Time.
No.
bitch.
That's also a shocking death because when she gets pulled
shocked
into
to
the
death.
screen, it like she's like, yeah, it's crazy. But in this, he's just sort of jumping around inside the screen,
There is
he's
a
a video game. Outside, he's being puppeteered like the puppet in the third
The
movie.
video game. Yeah.
That's the same movie as the as Welcome to Primetime, I believe, as well, because they're all in a psych ward.
right.
That one.
There's a couple of times where Freddy, like, he tries to disguise himself as your pal for a second before he'll lure you in. There's another one in Jason versus Freddy where he again, it's a stoner, and the stoner gets like super high, and he shows up as this like Alice in Wonderland style caterpillar, and he's like, mind if I have some of that? You're like,
Oh yeah, right.
you're like,
You know what?
okay.
That just made me think I want to see a Freddy Krueger versus Beetlejuice face-off.
Oh my god,
I
me
would
too.
fucking die of laughter.
That'd be incredible.
And it would probably be a pretty fair fight. They would just keep
It'll-
killing each other over and over again.
It would be crazy. I love it. They should do it.
Because Beetlejuice can manifest things in reality. Well, no, because he only really can do that in hell, right? Or in
Nah, he can come.
purgatory.
I think this is old information in my brain that is rattling around in there. I think Peter Jackson and Tim Burton both at some point worked on Freddy Krueger stuff.
Yeah.
And both of them are, horror comedy guys. Imagine the collab that those two
It
could have
still
had
happen.
making a Freddy Krueger movie.
It can still happen.
They're gonna
Might
pull
be
Robert.
A Peter Jackson Freddy movie or a Tim Burton Freddy movie would both be crazy.
Yeah.
And inversely, a Peter Jackson Beetlejuice movie would be crazy too.
Yeah.
Robert Englund.
Hey,
You know what? We could get Andy Serkis to play Freddy Krueger and mocap,
That's
and just
wild.
get Robert Englund
Yeah.
to do the voice.
yeah.
I'm sure.
Hell yeah.
I'm sure they could pull it off.
So John decides I'm going to go into that dream and save him, and tells Teresa to hit him. And she's like, no, hold on. I've got a way that we can do this with. He's like, lay me out. So she smacks him. He wakes up in the dream. And then she shows up and she's like, if you would have just waited a second, I can actually just meditate my way into these dreams. And
Yeah.
the thing that was interesting is there's a whole thing for like 2 movies in this series where there's like the dream warriors who can have dream powers and they can like astral project themselves into dreams. All of that's forgotten about. In this, the second you fall asleep, if you intend to fall asleep, you just go into the dream. You're just there. So I don't know. They're making up new rules. They're forgetting old rules. It would have been cool if
I wrote
John-
for this part. The rules are changing again. And,
it would have been cool if John was like figures out that he has the dream power, or if Maggie figures out she has the
I
dream
think
power.
that the implication is that he always knows when he's asleep. That guy seems to have
Okay.
a specific type of like awareness where he's like, I always know when I'm asleep. You need to knock me out and I'll be able to at least run for my life. Whereas the inverse is Yaphet Kotto's character, who's like, I can control my dreams, so I'm not afraid when I'm in them, and which is pretty cool. And he does sort of flex that ability later on, which we see, which is when Freddy's trying to fuck with him. He's like, I'm going to beat the shit out of you with a baseball bat, but I'm only here to gain evidence. Like, he does it smartly, right? You think for a minute he's going to die, but no, he's like, I'm here to figure out more about you, Freddy, and like steals a piece of his sweater. You're like, oh, this is good. He's like a dream detective.
We'll get to that because I thought that was a good little thing, because I was like, what the fuck? But at this point, basically Breckenmeyer's Spencer gets killed by being lured to like a staircase in the video game, but also in real life, and Maggie's like watching all this happen, and he walks down a staircase into hell and just falls down into hell, I guess. And then the
he's
TV
gone forever.
and then the TV fills up with blood. They just, for some reason, artistically, they wanted to show a TV explode with blood. And I thought that was pretty.
I mean, they did blood. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I just thought it was cool.
It was cool. It was pretty cool. Yeah.
Remind me of Shining.
I was kind of hoping for more of that, because when they first enter the house, which we kind of skipped over, the house, it looks like a normal house, and then it turns into they do a sort of a creative shot where the house starts to crumple in on itself and then expand and explode, and it's like a nice miniature, and it looks really beautiful. And then it's the house from Nightmare on Elm Street. And this is one of those moments where like the hardcore Freddy fans are like, rolling their eyes back in their head so hard they're like, I can't see. I hate this so much. But it looks good. Like it looks nice. Which is the case with a lot of stuff in this, man. I think there's a lot of really cool, interesting shots that don't get enough credit because this movie is shit on so hard by the Freddy fans that film fans can watch this and be like, that is a really interesting and cool shot. Like the shot when he first drops that one pin and it's a camera that's moving down, at like it's clearly like it was moving slow and they sped up the camera moving down, but they had the pin like spinning with it, like right in the frame. It looks cool. Like it's like a weird, cool, creative, stylish shot. And it matches the aesthetic of like what a dream world is, or like things should be heightened and seem odd, but also look interesting. And like that is a perfect example. And there's tons of those throughout this movie. Spoiler alert, I don't really like this movie that much. I don't think it's my favorite Freddy, but I do like lots of little bits of it. And a lot of it has to do with the camera work. And the camera work in this movie is kind of like immaculate at some points where I'm like, they clearly cared a lot about this specific shot more than they did about making an interesting Freddy story, which is,
I'll give you
fine.
something from my point of view about this exact thing where you've seen this movie before. You went into it with sort of a opinion formulated from seeing this movie. You've probably seen it a few times.
Well, I'll tell you right now, it's the first Freddy movie I ever saw, except I started at the part where Yaphet is beating Freddy up with a baseball bat. So.
Yeah, right. But from my point of view, I have this I've learned that the later in life that you watch an acclaimed movie or a bad movie, you might take something different out of it. Like I didn't watch Big Trouble in Little China until a couple of years ago for this show. And I'm going, wow, this movie's so great, it's so interesting, it's so it's got all these cool ideas that I would have enjoyed as a kid, and I wish I had seen it as a kid. But the fact that I saw it so much later in life, I got to witness it from this completely different perspective. And I think that's what happened for me with this movie, where I went in completely blind, only knowing all the Freddy movies I've only seen in the last few years as well, right? So I'm trying to connect it to those movies, and that's why storyline wise it's very confusing. There's a lot of really weird things that don't line up.
Orville, like you said at the very beginning, it's just like they shove a bunch of stuff in at the end that is trying to like explain the rest of the movie away, and like it doesn't really make sense, and it's not good as a story. But there are a lot of bits and pieces of this movie that are good.
I had a really good experience watching this movie. Like I really enjoyed it while I was watching. It wasn't until I sat with it for 2 days and started to really think about it and then talk about it with you guys for the show that I start to, when you pick at it, that's when it.
Well, no knock against you, but it is a very like accessible movie visually. Like you're just seeing a bunch of stuff happen, right? It's just stuff happening involving Freddy and a bunch of characters, but none of it really matters. I think that like you learn about certain characters maybe too much for the amount of time they have. Like you learn a lot about Spencer, which is where we are in the story. Spencer dies. We know he loves video games. We know he has an issue with his dad. We know that he loves pipe bombs. And we know that, he loves smoking weed. We learn all this stuff about him, and then he dies. We learn Carlos is deaf and that he maybe lost his hearing from, like, I stopped speaking back when it became hazardous to my health or whatever. And he's like hitting his ears. You're like, okay, so something happened to him to lose his hearing. We learn nothing about Tracy at all. We just learn that she's kind of a bitch. And you're like, I'm like, she's probably like this for a reason, but we don't know what the reason is. But she is overly aggressive, right? The entire movie. She's anything that happens, she blames somebody else. She gets mad at somebody, even for nothing happening. She'll like smack you in the chest. Like if something happened around you that you had no control over, she would punch you in the chest and be like, "What the fuck?" And you're like, "I didn't cause that." Like, what the heck is wrong with you?
The actor that plays Tracy, her acting choices for some of the stuff was fucking so bad.
It kind of felt like they gave her the wrong direction a lot of the time.
Yeah,
Orville, you're an actor. What happened there?
Listen, man. I said I was talking to somebody about this earlier on, and that's one of the biggest things for me that really cheesed me. And I was just like, this girl has one inflection, and it's just like this. If we're gonna go over there and kill Freddy, we gotta do it. I'm so sad. What's going on? I'm like so this because sad. Blah blah blah. I'm like, what is going on here? But that's what I said to my friend. I'm just like, I didn't even get mad at her at the end of the movie. I was like, yo, who told her this was okay? Director, what's going on? That's when I turned to the director. There's some acting that's so bad that I'm just like, there's no way the human emoting this could feel like this is the right thing to do. It must be through misdirection. Who is it?
Yeah.
But again, it could, it could be a bit of both.
Rachel Talalay was over at the special effects hut being like, how much blood is going to come out of the fingers? All right, maybe we should do green blood. And then
Green blood, yeah.
the actor playing
like,
Tracy
focus
is
on
like,
the wrong
I have a
thing.
question about the direction. Like,
yeah, you're doing fine, honey. You're doing fine.
I have a bit of a story that all makes sense now. So I looked her up because I was like, why is she so bad? What else do I know her from? When she first showed up, I thought it was the actor that played April O'Neil in the first Ninja Turtles movie, but it's not. But her name's Lezlie Deane. And what happened from my point of view is I noticed
not to
she's
interject, but I'm going to. The reason that Freddy's died, the reason that Freddy died is because of Ninja Turtles, by the way. Just wanted to add that in there. Ninja Turtles.
The movie
also,
kind of looks like Ninja Turtles.
Ninja Turtles, also a New Line movie, was the new House of Freddy. They're like the House of Turtles. we're changing the sign.
Before this, it fucking just destroyed. Like no more Freddy, only Raphael.
Turtles from now on.
Turtles kill him.
But what's interesting is Jodie a couple years later would go on to be in a movie, her second to the last movie she was ever in fact, a little film called Plump Fiction. And I only learned about Plump Fiction because of looking her up. And what this movie is imagine Scary Movie, but all of the parodies are Quentin Tarantino and movies from this era. So like Natural Born Killers, Forrest
wonderful.
Gump. It wasn't as bad as like Epic Movie, like the 2000s ones. There was some stuff in there, but it was 81 minutes long and kind of was an 81-minute long fat joke.
That's like less than a Disney movie.
Also, it was released on DVD too. I remember Rhino. Remember they put all that DVD distribution company called Rhino, and then garbage. Anyway, I watched this
movie production company, Rhino. We gotta get the
Rhino
movie.
It's Plump Fiction is free on YouTube, and I watched it. It's fucking god awful. But she plays, in Pulp Fiction, how there's the Gimp.
Yeah,
she plays the Gimp.
That's
in the parody version of Pulp Fiction.
The thing about Quentin Tarantino movies is they are also kind of already parodies, like of other stuff. Like that's what Tarantino does.
All self-referential. Yeah,
he makes parody of stuff that Tarantino loves, and he just changes it so that it doesn't feel like parodies. So parodying a Tarantino movie is like parodying a parody almost.
Yeah. My biggest Clerks was referenced. My biggest takeaway is Pamela Adline is in it, doing the Bobby Hill voice. She famously does the Bobby Hill voice. This is 3 years before King of the Hill, but she's in the segment that is Natural Born Killers. The guy who plays the Woody Harrelson character, you would recognize him to see him, but she plays the woman whose name escapes me.
I forget the purpose of. Did you have what was the point of this again? I can't remember.
The point, the whole point is that I learned about this piece of shit Mel Brooks ripoff, Scary Movie ripoff, before Scary Movie even came out.
No, and I watched one of the
movie mashup. Yeah,
I watched a movie like that the other day called Stan Helsing, and I will say that movie is not a movie. That movie is I'm very
series of references with Mad TV stars of the era.
I'm very capable when it comes to predicting what's going to happen in a movie. I could not predict what was going to happen in that movie at all. It was so random and not like non-midi, where you're like, it's so unfunny that you stop, like you're about to laugh, and then your face kind of goes into this morbid stone where you're like, ugh, not even a real joke could make me laugh now. It like sucks joy out of you. Yeah. Don't watch it. It's bad. Anyway, no more parody talk. Let's get back to
Tommy Davidson's in it as with some no name as like the two guys who are John Travolta and Sam Jackson, and they're literal exterminators. It's a whole thing. John Doe has a revelation that he's not Freddy's child. Let's move this forward.
Yeah, I wrote down what a twist, and then I put ... an obvious twist. This movie sucks.
I do want to talk about the scene where he wakes up in the falling house and he jumps back to Earth and pulls a parachute that's like his shirt, and he looks up and Freddy is like inside the parachute.
It's so dumb.
I mean, the shirt turning into the parachute is that is like next level Looney Tune. Like they're just taking from Bugs Bunny at this point.
Next level.
It might as well have been his underwear, like covered in hearts or something. Like
and Freddy pulls the chute. That takes forever. He cuts it like
he's asking him questions, being like,
You thought I was your daddy?
or whatever, and he's like, sink, and then they're, he's like,
I was just using you to get back
Sink.
to my daughter.
and John is like, daughter? Oh, you're gonna have to explain this more clearly to me, Freddy. I've been awake for 2 weeks. I can't understand what's happening here. His death was kind of freaky a little bit, I guess. Like where he has like
falls on a bed of nails. I thought that was
we get to Freddy like really struggling to move it. And he's like, oh, this is a lot of work. Like Freddy's getting tuckered out. But I mean, like the puncture wounds look cool. I guess, like you got to give credit where it's due. Like Orville, like you said, the ear thing was like, I looked it up, and that took them like 10 days of shooting because of the amount of makeup changes they had to do just on the ear prosthetic.
Yeah,
that stuff is time consuming, and there's a lot of craft there, so you have to respect it. Even if it looks okay, you still got to be like, it looks okay because they tried. Sorry, I remembered for a second this.
Son of a bitch. I was so stoked, and you just deflated my whole sail.
Well, it's because like my like brain was trying to be serious, and then I just got derailed by a funny image that popped into my head. But yeah, like like the lined up puncture wounds with the blood coming out, and him dying, you're like, oh. But again, the character was kind of shitty. He was so on edge at all times. You never really got a moment to like him. And you didn't really learn anything about him. You learned false information, which turned out to be, again, false. But you don't learn anything about him after that either. So he ends up just being like a ghost. Like he might as well just be a fiction of all of their imaginations that was conjured by Freddy in order to make this happen, kind of thing.
I was so sure that they went into a dream that now my whole perspective of this movie has changed, knowing that it literally is 10 years in the future, and all of the kids of Springwood are dead, and he is the last remaining one, and the adults there have gone insane.
Well, at least you didn't think it was a time travel movie like some people on the internet.
That's crazy. Like that's crazy.
I'm pretty sure Joe Blow movie review, like that very famous movie. Like his whole thing was like, he's a time travel and he gets sent back in time, and like every comment is like, what fucking movie did you watch? Like he does not go back in time. When is time travel established?
He would get the theories sting for that one, because I don't think any of us have really had a theory other than my theory that they were in a dream the whole time. But that's
also
not
the theory that he is the grown-up version of the kid from the dream child or whatever. Which
why don't you just play the theory to just encompass all of it? Just play the theory sting.
All the theories that we've thought of today are encompassed by this. What the fuck? We have too many stings now, and they keep getting moved around. Oh no! Here it is. No, that's not it. Where is it?
Theories. Question mark, exclamation point.
Theories.
That's a great time to talk about the fact that John Doe is dead, falls on spikes. And I wrote, one of the girls is his daughter, Maggie, I assume, because Tracy doesn't have any meaningful dialogue. And she sucks at acting, and her character trait is like,
she does figure out what's going on though. Like,
but let me ask you guys,
commendable, I guess.
I guess she does go hand to hand. She starts to get a Freddy style murder. That is one of the most uncomfortable parts in the movie. We'll get to it. Never mind. I was going to ask you what would her Freddy style kill be, but she does get a almost a Freddy style kill. Right. So they blast into another dimension. Maggie tells the old man at the shelter that the boys all ran away, which I thought was like, what? And Kotto's like, what are you talking about? What do you mean they all ran away?
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
but then like he starts erasing them from the memories of everyone. Everyone forgets who they are when they die, which is kind of a cool idea, but it's not affecting the ones who were in Springwood when it was happening. But you don't give it enough time. It's like one of those ideas that needs to be, if this was a TV show, you get a whole episode of them realizing that like the people who have died are forgotten across the entire campus of this shelter home. But it's like it happens within like 3 minutes where they're like, what happened to Johnny? And it's like, Johnny, who's Johnny? I've never heard of Johnny before today. And then they go to Yaphet Kotto and he's in his fucking Cosby sweater at this point where you're like, oh my God, are they evoking America's favorite dad of the era? And he's like, I can control my dreams, so this doesn't affect me. And you're like,
What the fuck?
I kind of like that. Like, I kind of like that idea where he's like a lucid dreamer or whatever, right? Like he goes in. You guys know the concept of lucid dreaming, right? Where you can go into a dream and
I used
control
to
everything
practice
inside
lucid dreaming.
All
And
right.
I controlled a
Fucking
dream.
hippie. Jason's like,
Exactly. No, exactly one time, I think I was 16. Exactly one time I was in a dream and I recognized it was a dream. And I like flipped a switch and changed the color of the sky. And then I woke up because I was.
And then you
I
flipped
was
another switch and it was all naked ladies around you. And you're like,
Yes,
yes,
yeah.
And then you woke
That's
up, you're like, fuck.
I even tried. So in high school, I even tried. There are these like sounds you can download that are supposed to, like, if you listen to them long enough, you'll
Help
get
you do it, yeah.
no, like you'll like have different effects, kind of like the brown note. The idea of the brown note, but
the
these are
binaural
like you.
beats.
Yeah, exactly. Binaural beats, and you listen to like this certain frequency of buzzing, and it'll like make you feel like you're stoned. And I downloaded a whole pack of those at one point and tried them all, and I don't think I was like, you have to like kind of meditate into it too.
Yeah.
So I don't think I was doing it properly.
I mean, there's the brown noise and there's the pink noise, and those are both very good for sleeping.
What's the pink noise?
The pink noise it's like similar to the brown noise, but it's a little bit higher pitched.
I thought the brown note was the one that.
No, I said noise, not note. Just
Okay.
yeah. I play the brown note when I have some indigestion. Like I gotta take
Oh,
care
God.
of this. Hold on. Dun, 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 dun. Okay, sorry.
Binaural beats. Yeah. The next Freddy movie just like comes into your dream and makes you listen to like and your head explodes. Okay, so Maggie's spiraling. She finds adoption papers. I want to do a callback to that that image that was drawn with crayons. Said K. Krueger. They're trying to figure out who K. Krueger is during this whole time when they meet the professor and the woman who's like teaching the invisible children. And basically she's like, I'm going to go to bed because nothing bad ever happens when you go to sleep. I'm yelling at my screen. What are you talking about going to sleep right now? And this is where we get the sequence where she's in the dream, right? Where she learns that she's literally Freddy's daughter.
So I gotta ask you. You said you didn't. This wasn't telegraphed to you from the beginning, but like I feel like it was.
It wasn't.
I'd like to know what you think as well.
Oh, Orville, sorry.
Like we at the beginning see them have a shared dream, and we always see him in the dream world. But when it's her, she's dreaming from a first person perspective. So did that you just kind of give it away? I don't know. Like for me, I was like, she's dreaming from the perspective of the girl.
Yeah, I kind of definitely it kind of gave it away for me. Like it did prelude to that. But at the same time, I wondered if there was, because at that dream sequence, again, I said that those 5 minutes are like the darkest of the entire movie. Just torture thing that he was doing there, and how the wife came out saying, "Oh, I won't tell anyone, won't tell anyone," and the little girl going down there. I'm just like, now that kind of led me to believe, I'm like, was he also abusing his daughter?
Right.
And the way kind of, but then process of elimination, we already knew that girl was gonna be the actual daughter.
Yeah.
Because the other girl had her dream with her dad in it, and it wasn't ready. Well, everyone turns into Freddy in the end.
Yeah, and like them literally sharing like she's like, and the little girl, tell me more about her, and she's like, well, she was short, she was a child, she had brown hair, and she had, and then they both say ribbons in her hair like at the same time. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah. I agree. And like, there's, I think moments in everyone's mind, like they do a good job of filming this in a very dreamlike way, right?
I like the way it was filmed. It was great.
Me too. And there is something inherently creepy. Like you said earlier, Freddy is almost more evil seeming when he's in his human form than when he's undead. And we get this weird sort of series of events where she goes into his brain, right? Like she's like, I'm going into Freddy's mind now. And you get like a literal sort of like periscoping weird, like underwater submarine or something going through these. They almost look like synapses or something in a brain. And she goes into them. And then you see Freddy killing a hamster with a hammer. And then you see him like getting slapped with his belt by Alice Cooper, his dad.
And he's
which is like, is it his dad? I don't know if it's his dad. I think maybe it's just someone who adopted him or something. Because he's the son of 1,000 maniacs. Son of 1,000 maniacs. But then you see...
Well, she's the daughter of the son of 1,000 maniacs.
1,000 maniacs, yeah.
Well, that was the other thing is like this movie could have been sort of a setup for like another Krueger in the family or whatever, right?
Oh, for sure.
Like she could have been the next Freddy Krueger. She even kills him with his own glove. And she does a pretty good, like she opens it up pretty nicely, like the flourish there. But yeah, there is something very off-putting about Robert Englund in human form without his like crazy voice, and he's just like when he's talking normally.
Like, hey man.
Yeah, he kind of reminds me of Jigsaw, the guy who plays Jigsaw. I'm like, he could have easily played that role and have been equally as terrified.
I saw like an interview with Robert Englund recently where he was talking about how he did the Freddy voice, and it's actually how I did this.
It's time for a synopsis, bitch.
Which is that if you lower the pitch of a voice or whatever, there's always sort of a robotic quality that is added to that, right? If you just lower the pitch of it, it's going to make it deeper, but it always sounds sort of strange. And he was like, but if you just slow it down, that is removed, and it slows everything down. So he was like, what I would do is I would, say the lines faster and then I would do them normally on set. And then when I would ADR, I would say them faster. So it would still sync up. When I would say them faster, it would like make them deeper and have that sort of crazy voice or whatever. And like they showed like an example, and I was like, that's pretty cool.
That's interesting. Yeah, that's cool. I didn't know that. Wow, fun fact.
Fun fact. Yeah.
We need a fun fact button.
Yeah, fun fact.
Fun fact, bitch.
Fun fact, bitch.
Yeah, so this sequence shows him in his real form, like you guys were talking about. We're sort of put into a situation where Freddy's wife. So Freddy just is like, we're gonna find out he's lived this horrible life, but he does end up marrying a woman and having a child, and she finds his kill room, I guess, which is we're starting to add these like story layers so far into the movie, like right at the end of the second act into the third act. She finds the room. Maggie, we find it as his biological daughter. It's Maggie's having a dream but it's more like remembering all of this. And
it's like
he was
the
killing
door that
kids
she opens
before the parents got him.
It's like she opens the door into the basement or whatever, and it's like she's unlocking the trauma of her past or whatever, right? Like, not to get too artsy about it, but like they're literally trying to show that in the movie, which is cool. Like, do that kind of stuff in a dream world killer dream man. Like, do that stuff all you want. I appreciate
it. Meanwhile, we also, which is sort of falls into this whole father-daughter stuff. Tracy has been alluding to her having the reason why she's in the home is because she had a really bad home life, and she gets a Freddy Krueger like dream as well, where her dad is a bad man.
He's a sexual assaulter.
He's a sexual assaulter.
Yeah.
And
Fiddler.
Yeah.
okay.
He said, "Diddle me this, Tracy."
That's what P. Diddy says. Oh God.
It's
Anyway.
very traumatizing. It's scary. It's
Give daddy
vicious
some
murder.
honey.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
recoil.
No honey for daddy.
But she fights back and she beats him to death with a kettle, and then we get that great scene of the dad, like a great body horror face of his face all mangled.
which is
That
very
was good.
dreamlike. Like his face is made of putty and it's all like
Yeah.
kind of disfigured. Yeah.
And
But then
I
this is
kept
another-
writing I keep calling her Teresa in my notes, which is why I've called her Teresa several times through this episode. Tracy is a bad actor and her lines suck.
Oh God, Jason, we already talked about this. Stop doubling
I know.
down.
I'm
What
sorry.
if she's watching right now? She could be
she
in a bad
definitely is.
place.
It's true. But
We already said it's Lolola's problem or whatever. Layla. She
She
was
does
too
a
busy
really
with the green blood. She couldn't give good direction.
she does a really interesting thing though, where she realizes she's in the dream and she burns herself on the stove. I thought,
But I
Did you
want to
guys-
talk about the
did
shot.
you guys think she was going to let her fists on fire to fight Freddy? Because she kind of
That'd be crazy.
I did
Freddy.
not do that.
She's insane though. She's insane. She comes out of the
might do
dream, start punching a punching bag, reckless abandon, and almost snaps her wrist.
Flaming fist.
Fuck!
Yeah.
And the guy's just standing there watching it. I'm just like, this is so weird. It's the weirdest scene in the movie. It's one of the weirdest scenes in the movie.
I
Kung
kind
Fu
of-
this bitch.
Yeah,
Kung
he
Fu.
does
While they're-
say
while they're
Kung Fu
fist
this
fighting.
bitch. But I did want to say, like, another really interesting shot is when he gets up and she's like, "You can't hurt me anymore. My father's dead," or whatever. And then like he's like, "Come on, baby," or whatever. And then like the other hand comes up and it's Freddy Krueger. And like, it's just clever camera work
Yeah.
where that guy moves away and then Robert steps forward, but it's the same
Yeah.
arm. And
I'm
he's
glad
like,
you brought that up because it was kind of like the map and the chalkboard were all similarly cool little effects that were just done in camera. Like he's just the way he turns, just a quick cut to him. Suddenly he's
and it's like,
he's Freddy.
logically you can figure out how they did it, but visually it looks sick. You're like, oh man,
Yeah,
that's
super
good.
sick.
Because if you're not
Practical
if you're not sitting there being like, how do they do that? You're just watching it. It just looks good. And it's the same when he's cutting his fingers off or whatever, right? He's like,
One, they tried to burn me. Then they tried to cut my head off. And they tried to suck holy water.
They
up
tried
my-
holy water.
Yeah.
That's right after Doc beats him into oblivion with his baseball bat. That's
but
the
that's
next.
also like clearly like he's just like putting a fake arm down and then sticking the next hand
Right,
finger
yeah.
up and
I
then
see what you're
throwing the
saying.
fake one away and going,
Ah, like a man, close up magic, bitch. Pick a card, any card.
Well, we also learned through that the dream people gave him the job of dream murderer,
yes.
which
My
is what
favorite part
Orville
of the
was
movie.
saying
Yeah.
at the start. That's like stop adding
Well, he's got
layers.
a photograph of the
Yeah.
dream worms or
Yeah.
whatever.
Just about he's about to die in the flames. You're just like, we know what you want.
Yeah.
We'll give you the power. I want anything.
Yeah.
They
Doesn't
go
he
inside
say?
of him.
Doesn't he say like earlier? It's like, or is it earlier or later? I can't remember. But there's a scene where he's looking at the photo or whatever, Yaphet Kotto's character, and he's like, they were dream demons that they would find the most evil being that they could find, and they would go inside them, and they would
Yeah.
give them the power to exist in dreams or whatever.
Yeah.
Which, that's like some Star Wars shit, and I like it. Where I'm
Yeah.
like, that's cool. But not for the last 20 minutes of a movie.
Nah.
No, like make the
Make
whole
that the whole
movie about-
concept. Yeah.
Make the whole movie about giving Freddy's backstory with all these cool, and then don't set up a Hellraiser style thing and then have it had no payoff. Hellraiser has this whole conceit that in the later movies, it's just people going about their business and then they find the fucking the cube and then
It's called
Pinhead
the
shows
lament
up.
configuration.
the lament configuration, and then Pinhead shows up and starts torturing the people, and that works. You can
Pinhead
take a
never
movie-
does like a
What's your favorite sex position, bitch?
It kind of does.
Ding, ding, ding.
He's
Is
usually more
Is
like
it all your skin removed and put on a pole?
you're gonna encounter infinite pain, and you're not even gonna know until you're experiencing it. That I love it when you experience infinite pain. The Hellraiser series is wild. I'm on Hellraiser 8 now in a very short period of time. And this movie kind of plays the way that those movies have started playing, where it's just like a film noir, but then Pinhead shows up and then they sprinkle a little bit of lore, or it full on
They
feels like
sprinkle
they
a couple of
just made,
pins, just like Freddy Krueger does in this movie.
or they just make a full horror movie that has nothing to do with Hellraiser, and then they just film some scenes of Pinhead in a puddle to be like, I'm going to show you pain and pleasure beyond infinite recognition. Or
Also,
whatever the fuck.
Hellraiser, Pinhead sounds a lot cooler than Freddy, I think.
Well, he's more like this, actually.
Jean-Luc Picard?
Yes.
More pins, Beverly.
More pins, number one. That was
Okay.
kind of Sean Connery. Okay. Yeah. So Doc makes it out of the dream after he has his encounter with.
So again, I just want to
Frederick.
reinstate that this is the moment in all Freddy Krueger movies that I think about the most. There are so many good moments in all Freddy Krueger, from the first one to this one to New Nightmare to Jason versus Freddy, that I think about all the time. But this is the one that I think about the most, which is Yaphet Kotto like backing up from Freddy, being like, this guy's gonna try and fuck me up. And then Freddy just kind of being like, ah, and like, trying to freak him out. And then Yaphet Kotto pulling a baseball bat out and just beating him to the point that he's on the ground and he's like unconscious. And it looks goofy. Like Freddy looks goofy at this point. And then Yaphet Kotto grabbing him and him turning around and being like, bah! And then him snatching the sweater and having the little scrap of sweater and then going. So like, this being one of the first introductions to Freddy, I thought that was just a rule that was always established in all Freddy. But this is kind of where they make that a rule in the last movie. And then Freddy versus Jason, they do the same thing, which is a good rule. It's a good rule. If you can bring Freddy into the real world.
That's not just from this. There's in the first movie, remember, they half bring him out and then they realize that they can bring him out of the dream. Remember, he's like halfway out of the floor in the first movie.
I don't remember. That's crazy.
I thought it was like he's always sort of like, I mean, but it's like a different thing where it's like you grab him and you can fully bring him, like you can like pull him out.
Yeah, but there's that whole thing at the end of the first one, they like almost bring him out of the dream world and they realize they can do it, but then it's never explored again for 5 movies.
Like, we got his nose ring, and he's like, "That's not mine." Like, where'd we get this then?
I feel like if you're the kind of person who's seen the first 6 Freddy movies like 100 times each, you can this is probably like viewed as Freddy's greatest hits, and all of these are references to other movies.
No,
That's
you're
what
right.
it felt like.
It absolutely is that though. Like that is
Yeah.
It's his greatest hits album. It's his last album, and he's never coming back. He's dead. Robert Englund has retired. We're not doing it again. Let's put all the good stuff in, and then also a couple of Looney Tunes jokes just for safe measure.
For safe measure, let's make this movie safe for.
No,
like,
you're right though. Like there's a lot of rules
PG-13.
that are half rules, and then they like establish new, and then they also are trying to bring in new lore, and then they never really go back to that lore. But in New Nightmare, which have you guys both seen that? Or
I haven't seen it, so I don't.
I haven't seen it.
So it has nothing to do with the Freddy Krueger movies because it's its own thing where the Freddy Krueger movies are movies in that movie. Like they are just movies.
I do know that about it.
Yeah. But they're
like making a Freddy Krueger movie in that universe, right?
Yes. And all the other ones exist. And like there's even people in the movie who are like, you should never killed Freddy off. He was the best. And you're like, is that guy Freddy? Like, is that their Freddy coming back through these psychopaths?
That feels like Seed of Chucky, and I'm so excited to watch it. I'm so just Seed of Chucky had that same kind of vibe.
But it's I mean, the only difference between like the Seed of Chucky and Scream, where they're like, we're making the Stab movies and we're making the Charles Lee Ray Murder Doll movies, is like in this, Freddy Krueger never existed and they're not basing it on anything. It's just those movies existed, and Wes Craven's like, I have a new idea for a new nightmare. And you're like, oh fuck. And it's actually him playing himself. Like it's so
Yeah,
weird.
That's gonna be a fun.
And like
conversation.
surprisingly, he does a good job. Like he's not a good actor, but like him being like, I'm the creator of Freddy. Like he almost seems like a Steve Jobs style. Like if Steve Jobs
got a
was in his
turtleneck
own
on.
biography. Yeah, like it seems like that. Anyway, I don't want to give it away. It's a good one. I like it a lot.
Thank you. Right. So Doc makes it with some fabric. There's a planet drama, just like the first movie. Then the 3D glasses come into play. Weird.
They can be
I
whatever you
didn't
want
know
them to be.
watching it. You can be, and I thought she was gonna pull it a fucking Uzi or a fucking
So,
rocket launcher.
Often in my notes, I write down a question that I want you guys to answer.
Okay.
This is my question. If you could turn those 3D glasses into anything you wanted to turn them into, that they had to still be on your face though. Like they had to still be goggle-esque.
Oh.
What would you make them into?
Yo, those old school visors, like Kanye West made it popular with the little
Yeah.
zizzles?
I've got
I'll
a
do it
couple
like that.
pairs of
I'll do it. Yeah, I'll put on that.
Listen,
Okay.
I'm gonna go outside the box, and I'm going to make Steve mad with this, but I would turn it into Doom. I would make my vision Doom. When I put the glasses on, it becomes Doom, and then I pull it out the RPG from Doom.
That's hilarious.
And you're like, ding, 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 ding,
Yes.
ding. Okay. Well, I mean, Jason, you didn't make me mad because my answer is it turns into the
Oh, Cyclops? That's hilarious.
Cyclops? That's perfect.
Yeah.
It'd be pretty usul.
I would be blasting Freddy to bits with my laser
You're right.
visions.
What do your Kanye West shades do, Orville?
My Kanye wishes shit. Maybe now that we have powers with our fucking shape, maybe
It can be anything you want it to be.
Maybe like like the little sliver, it like cuts through them. So like
Perfect.
Yeah,
Perfect.
just horizontal lines shooting through my eyes, cutting everything like horizontally.
Like walls just turn into
Just
spaghetti
walls
and
like
you're
zoom, zoom. Yeah.
Okay. Very good.
We've become the X-Men, I think.
We've
We
become
just
the
have glasses-based powers.
Yes.
Jason has a chainsaw. Like,
But
me and
everything's
Orville are doing the
pixelated.
same thing, just
Yeah.
in different versions of it.
All the monsters have Freddy Krueger faces. Like imagine
love-
that one monster that's like the legs and the small arms with the big face.
Oh God,
But it's Freddy.
that's terrifying.
Right. So this is when the movie sort of takes its own trip out sequence. Maggie kind of goes into Freddy's brain. We've also seen at this point all the different eras of Freddy's life. Like we saw him as a kid, he's murdering hamsters. We see him as a teenager, and Alice Cooper is his dad and is an asshole to him and tortures him. Well, it's not his dad. There's no way of knowing. who your
Yeah,
dad
I mean,
is.
like he's the son of the Thousand Maniacs. His dad is the Freddy Krueger character.
I think he's
from-
an orphan and he keeps getting adopted by bad parents.
Well,
by Alice Cooper and
or he's just too insane because his mom was a nun who was,
Oh God.
we know what happened.
and we also see him literally get burned alive with people with like stakes and pitchforks outside, and he's like, I'll get your kids. And I like that, and like we were talking about, I feel like that should be the movie, like him sort of like imagine a Freddy Krueger movie where he's in like hell, but he's like in therapy and he's reliving all of this. And that's
crazy.
how we see these scenes, and the kids
He's being
he's-
he's being like therapized by like a beholder with like a million eyes, being like,
yeah
It's crazy.
All right, Freddy, tell me again how that made you feel.
But it's like it's like a
It
Sopranos
made me want to
thing.
kill all their children over
Yeah.
and over forever.
It's like a Sopranos thing where in between his therapy sessions, he's like torturing the remaining kids of
he keeps
of Elm
he keeps
Street.
getting windows of opportunity to go back to Earth to like do
Yeah.
more, cause more havoc. Yeah. The devil shows up and he's like, "All right, Freddy, we decided to let you go wreak havoc for another 10 years. As long as you can maintain it, we'll let you stay."
Yeah,
Did
so
Pretty
basically
good job if he eliminated every child in an entire state.
that's
or
a
whatever.
pretty good kill streak too. Like
You'd
several
think
generations.
You think the FBI and the government would get involved at that point and be like, "What do you mean all your kids killed themselves? Like, this seems like a big problem."
What do you mean they all died in dreams, or they died of mysterious?
In their sleep.
One guy exploded into blood. That doesn't make any sense. Right.
They just ban water beds instead of looking at the root cause.
There's a really cool sequence. If you watch the credits, there's a whole team that like made the snakes, because there's a practical doorway where the snakes are there and Maggie walks through, which I thought
it looked
good. Pretty good.
It's like a labyrinth, like a Jim Henson level. Pretty good. Yeah, it was pretty good.
And
they're all chattering like, "Hey, how's it going, you bitch?"
And the implication is that they're going into his brain, and that's how she's like seeing all the different phases of his life. And I wrote, "Ew, it's like a hell jungle." So, and then I already talked about the different phases of his life. Alice Cooper's his dad, burned alive, and then we get we kind of go into the final battle from here.
Yeah, Yaphet Kotto pulls her out just before she's about to get, like, she's holding him, right? Like, and then because that's what he had to do. And then they bring him out, but then he comes into the real world, and then Freddy's dream powers, I guess, like infect in the same way that it did for Springwood. Because like when you go into Springwood, something's off, right? Like everything's kind of kooky, crazy. I assume that's the same thing that happened here, except Freddy's like, "Uh-oh, something's wrong. Did they pull me into the real world?" Oh, God.
Like, I hate being immortal. But the thing is like she pulls his hand back and breaks it. And I hate being immortal, and just like puts it back. So it's like everybody's got powers. It felt very like superhero.
I'm going to keep going back again to what Orville said at the very beginning. None of this shit makes that much sense, and they introduced it too late for us to really be able to ruminate or stew to understand it. So it's just there, I guess. Like we have to deal with it.
Yeah, they reference the arsenal, so they go down and get the arsenal together. I think that's while she's in there, and she kind of has like a final battle with him. But
I don't think that any of us really thought that it was going to be a real arsenal. You know, like this guy confiscating stuff from kids. Like
there's that crazy
nail. You're muted.
It's just fucking pocket knives, bro, and baseball bats.
But
like,
the nail bat with the fucking railroad spikes
that's just wild, bro.
Who brought that to school?
That's what I'm saying. I hope he got expelled. Get that kid out of here. Get him to a mental hospital. That's crazy. There's no helping him.
What orphan had that?
He's not allowed. Crazy. But you know, like it could have been like we were saying before, like an accelerated version of it based on Freddy logic, right? Like you go in there and there's the knife with like the brass knuckles with spikes and a blade. Yeah, she pulls that out, and then I think I can't remember who it is, but one of them's like, "That's not big enough." And it's like, what? That knife you can punch, you can stab, you can throw. That thing looks pretty handy. But I don't know. Maybe I'm dumb. I don't know a lot about knives.
Ninja stars are the way to go.
And you need a one throw, one time use shuriken. Yeah.
Full on. Right. So real Freddy tries to trick Maggie, but Maggie gets the glove. They have the real final battle. There's a scuffle. She bites his nose. She breaks his hand. He just bends it back into place. The throwing knives. She's throwing knives him to a wall and shoots him with a crossbow. Stabs the fuck out of him. And I wrote no pipe bomb. And then through the door, here comes the pipe bomb. She grabs it, sticks it into him.
It is so funny that she just keeps throwing more and more, not like just
there was so much. Like, I'm like, this is crazy.
She's got, I mean, and like Yaphet Kotto the whole time is like trying to get through the door. Like we got to get her out of there. But like the other Tracy is just endless supply of knives. This is another one where I'm like, the map bit was funny, but like it should have been even like Freddy should have had like a million and like a bunch that missed as well, where she's just like
like, oh come on, there's so many in me, there's no space left.
So I just want to say this, she gets the claw and does the claw thing. She fucking stabs him with the claw. She grabs the pipe bomb, stabs it into him. It explodes, and then
that's when they said the name of the movie in the movie.
Carlos's head
She's-
blows up.
No.
She says, "Freddy's dead." Credits. Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfectly executed film.
But she also laughs in a way that almost felt too real. Like they told her to say it and she was laughing. And I'm like, this may have been a moment where she said the line and thought it was so ridiculous
So
that she started
stupid.
laughing in real life. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're like, let's just
That's
use
a-
that one. It's real. It's real. It's a real reaction.
It's the only one we started recording on. Fuck. Yeah, let's use it.
Somebody threw a shirt.
That's my favorite theory of the night.
Yeah. Somebody accidentally threw a shuriken at the pile of actual film that had like the real takes on it. They're like, oh, shit.
And it cut it together into this perfect film.
Yeah.
Oh my
Well,
god, I
that's the
can't
end
believe
of
the
the
rating
movie.
I gave this movie. Okay, so we did it. We came in at the exact time. But we do have a couple things that we'd like to do before we get out of here, Orville. Do you have a little bit of time to indulge us with a final thought, a Home Alone of it all in a game?
Oh, okay.
All right. So the first thing we will do is the Home Alone of it all, I believe. Steve, if you will.
Oh.
If you had to pick one,
But what do you think
moment,
the Home
when
Alone of it
is
all?
the Home Alone of it all?
Can someone please tell me when the Home Alone?
I really got
When's
to
the Home
know.
Alone?
When
of it all?
is the Home Alone of
What
it all?
is the Home Alone of it all?
Now that's the Home Alone of it all.
That's fire. Who produced that track? That's fire.
That's all, Steve.
God damn, Steve. You laying it down. That's crazy. Am I coming
used-
here?
It used to be better, if you can believe that. There's
What?
a version of it with Home Alone music that kept getting.
Oh, with the
Yeah, it kept
send me that
getting-
MP3.
Yeah, but the YouTube's doesn't like it.
Of course.
You are the first
Home-
to dance to it, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
It's fire. How you mean? It's fire.
Okay, so if it isn't clear, which it isn't, the Home Alone of it all comes from an idea that in the movie Home Alone, we're all there to see Kevin McAllister roll out the blueprint and set up the traps for Harry and Merv to go through. Okay, I posit
Jason always says Merv. His name's Marv, by the way.
Merv. I have a friend. I have a friend named Merv, and I think that's what pops into my head.
Right.
I like this. I like this from World Mind. Freddy's dead. The shuriken cut.
Wow.
'Cause that's how it was. That's how it was created.
Yeah.
So basically, what I posit is every movie sort of has its own version of that, where it's like the sequence or the part of the movie that you're sort of there to see. So in Home Alone, you're there to see that third act where, Harry and Marv are going through the home. Orville, what's your Home Alone of it all for this film, Freddy's Dead: The Final Nightmare?
Oh man, I'll say it's the same across the board for all of my 80s horror movies. Is a body horror. I'm here for it. I know. Like, I just love how creative that era was with the lack of they did have a lot of technology. Because come on now, they had like sci-fi's like in the 60s and everything. But like, just to see what they do with the practical effects, even though it looks sometimes like, come on now, but like, I appreciate the work that the crew puts in. So I went into this movie like, I want to see the crazy set decorations and the prosthetics for the kill scenes, the dream sequences. And I wish there was more, but again, Carlos, RIP. But that one was the best one.
It was the best one. Yeah. I agree.
Hands down. Okay, great. How about you, Steve?
I gotta say, for me, it is immediately Carlos going to sleep, because it's the first time that you see someone going to sleep. And in Freddy movies, someone going to sleep is always bad, but in this movie, it's always from the get-go. You don't really, people are trying to stay awake, even when she like falls asleep and that little newspaper head comes up and it's like, I'll never tell. And you're like, oh God, what the heck's happening here? But Carlos, like, deliberately going to bed, something bad is about to happen, and the movie starts there for me. Everything before that is too much. It feels like a weird Goosebumps story, like an R.L. Stine starring Roseanne Barr and Tom Arnold being like, why are you talking to these kids? You stupid idiot. And then the bell rings and it's like, you see what you did? And you're like, what is this? like I've seen every Freddy Krueger movie, and even I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? But yeah, him going to sleep and then having that sort of real, again, your background, Orville, is like perfect. It's like the same exact vibe. Yeah, like where it's this sort of destitute situation where there's a lot going on, and he's bumping into people, and then he runs into somebody from his past, and that person turns into Freddy, being like,
Time to clean your ears out, bitch.
and you're like, oh, what the fuck? You're like, this is what Freddy Krueger is. So that's what it is for me. Is I guess the same answer. You're the practical effects, but also for me, it's Carlos going into the dream world. Yeah.
Perfect. I'm gonna change it up a little bit, because mine was also when they get in the van and they sort of go, and the three main kills, the three boys get killed. But I'm actually gonna change it for the sake. We didn't really talk about this, but in the credits, well, we did talk about it. I mentioned it. In the credits, we see every kill from a Freddy movie. Okay, I think that the fact that they got you to stay and watch the credits because you want to relive all of those kills now that Freddy is dead and gone forever, I think that is very important for the series to see how interesting some of these kills were. There's one kill, or one part of a kill, where he like bends a guy's arms backwards and off.
Yeah.
Which actually made me squirm again for the first time. And that was pretty intense compared to like most of the stuff in this movie. Most of the kills in this movie are just like them fighting Freddy for like 40 minutes.
I think the most squirmy moment of this movie is when he pulls the pin out of his finger. I was like, ew, in your finger. Why is it in there, Freddy? You sick
and the
fuck.
Q-tip to the ear. Both of those are within the same sequence also. Right.
So I think we all agree the same sequences. But I mean, Jason, yours is stay for the credits is your favorite part.
Stay for the credits and watch all of the kills from the history of Freddy up to this point. I think is a pretty good one.
Well, skip
the movie. I don't want to talk about what my rating for this movie is. You're gonna hate me. But that's that. So now we have to Sherpa Orville through the MPAA rating game.
It's time to play Guess the MPAA.
Hello, everybody. My name is Fingerpin McGillicuddy, and I'm going to welcome you to the greatest game, the game that everybody's talking about, the MPAA rating game. I'm going to turn it over to my co-host and also contestant of this amazing game, Steve Waters. Tell Orville the rules and how this game works.
Well, Orville, welcome to the MPAA guessing game, where you have to guess the MPAA rating of the movie that you just watched. So, what we need to do is guess a 3-digit number between 000 and 999. Of course, those are the last 3 digits of a 50,000 digit number, but we're only guessing. We're only guessing 3. So I think I explained it pretty well. A number between 000 and 333. We will each get 3 guesses to narrow it down to a single 3-digit number.
Right, and there are 2 caveats to this. It is a total 5-digit number. I'll give you the first 2-digit number, first 2 digits of the 5-digit number. You just, like Steve said, just 000999, a number between those. If you guys do come to a tie, which is inevitable, I'll explain that when we get to it, but you'll have a chance to earn an extra guess. So, Orville, why don't you go first? Give us a 3-digit number. The first 2 numbers this week are 31.
31. 313.
No, it's a 5-digit number.
Oh, you want me to give you the rest of the digits? Oh, I'm sorry. Now I understand.
Yeah,
okay.
That's how long
Start
it
over
takes
again.
for everybody.
You said
31.
31629.
629. It's lower.
3,500.
Orville, it's lower.
3,1,247.
Steve, it's higher.
3,300.
Orville, for your final guess, it's lower.
3,1,286.
Steve, for your final guess, it's slightly lower.
3,8,0.
Lower. No,
Wait, did I say it wrong?
he said 281. It's 284.
Oh.
It's lower than slightly
Is it
lower.
281? Sorry, I got thrown off because I combined all the numbers in my head. 281. Okay, so 277.
The
that
suspense
it?
is killing me.
Boner alert.
Oh my god, Jason's getting a boner. Is that
Whoa.
it?
You did it. You fucking
Rihanna.
guessed it correct. You guessed it correct. I can't believe it. I can't believe it. I can't believe it.
Lucky.
It's the second time in history, Orville. We've never done
That's
this
sick.
before.
That's sick.
That's crazy. I can't
What's
believe
my
you guessed
prize?
it right. Well, you get to come back next week, and I
Yay!
don't kill you in your dreams tonight.
Congratulations.
Um,
You deserve it.
so so fucking why is that longer than usual? What normally happens if it comes to a tie, you kind of do a Price is Right for the box office gross. Whoever gets closest without going over will get another guess. But I'm just going to tell you, the budget for this movie was 10 million and it made 34.9 mil. Those are the statistics that I have.
That seems like enough money that they would want to do another one.
That's what I'm saying. That's
Not wait
exactly what I'm
almost
saying.
10 years, but yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that's congratulations, Steve. Thank you, Orville. And we're gonna go into our final thoughts and then we're gonna go to bed.
It's time for our final thoughts.
And of course, the guest always goes first here on Hey, Did You See This One? So Orville, why don't you give us your final thoughts for the movie, and also if you want to give it a rating, whether it be out of 5 or out of 10 or stars or complete nonsense, the floor is yours to give us your final thoughts.
My final thought of the movie was that I'm glad it was an opportunity to revisit the Nightmare on Elm Street series. This movie in particular, I'm gonna have to give it a hard, solid, diamond crusted 4. If it wasn't for Carlos's death, which is so wild that I'm saying this, if it wasn't for Carlos's death, it would have been a lot lower, because again, I wanted more of that, because what I came for, I only got a little bit of it. I wanted the whole cake. You know what I'm saying? So they didn't give me that. So selfishly, on the bias level, I'm gonna say it's a 4. But I have a soft spot for 80s horror films, so I knew I was gonna have a fun time watching it regardless. Because it's one of those, they just have charm, and that's one thing I think that's missing from a lot of films these days is just charm. Everything's so serious and so blah 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 blah, blah. But it was real, and it felt like it was it just seemed like a fun film, and something that if you were a part of that film, you'd be remembered for it, even though he's trying not to be forgotten. So he's really getting what he wants. We never forget Freddy Krueger, and oh my god. Yeah, that's my final thought.
All right. Do you have a rating?
Oh yeah, 4. Solid, hard,
Diamond
encrusted 4.
Okay.
That's great. How about you, Steve? What's your final thought for Freddy's Dead: The Final Nightmare?
I mean, for the fact alone that this is the first one that I have ever seen, and the fact that the image of Yaphet Kotto beating Freddy Krueger to death with a baseball bat over and over again lives in my mind and my memory over and over again forever. Even when I just think of Freddy Krueger, that image pops into my head. That's going to be there forever. So, it's Nathan. He was on the show once.
Blink and you'll miss him.
Yeah, blink and you'll miss him. Yeah, I don't know. I have a lot of problems with this movie, but I also like a lot of stuff in this movie that makes me think of the Freddy Krueger sort of mythos and what it is to be Freddy Krueger, I guess, in terms of like movie wise. So I can't say that it's bad, but I also can't say that it's the best one in the series by a long shot. So for me, I'm going to give him the classic Freddy Krueger holds his hand up and cuts his fingers off one by one, but he cuts all the fingers off and then he's like,
Oh, I meant to leave a couple on there, but I don't remember how many. Sorry.
That's perfect. Yeah, I can agree with both of you. I basically react to these movies as soon as I finish them. So let me tell you what I wrote. Fantastic way to end the original 6 movies. This one feels extra special. Rarely do we see a horror monster actually die for good, but this is the end of that story, technically. Great kills, some god-awful acting in Tracy, but overall a fantastic entry into the series and the grimoire at large. 4.1 out of 5.
wow.
I also give this movie 3 dream beings out of 3.
They're called dream people.
Dream people. All right. Well, that's our show for this week. This has been Hey, Did You See This One? Before we actually get out of here, there's one more thing I need to ask of our guest and the rest of us. Do you have anything? You're on mute. Do you have anything that you want to plug?
All right, let me just plug this in right here and.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm fucked up in the head, so I just went along with it.
That's perfect. That's great.
I didn't know it was gonna go for that long. I'm like, oh, I'm already committed. I'm already committed to getting electrocuted. Things I want to plug. Final thoughts. First of all, thank you guys for having me. I actually love this. You guys, this production.
You're welcome back
value on the
anytime.
show is freaking amazing. Steve, you're killing it with the beats, man. I need these MP3s. I need a new playlist. Tomorrow. I've been thinking about it all week, but this and the 2 main events of this week has been this podcast and tomorrow I'm having a premiere for a movie that I'm in called Morningside that's premiering at the Real World Film Festival here in Toronto, Canada. I would invite y'all, but it's fortunately and unfortunately sold out. Both shows are sold out. So I'm looking forward to that screening. The movie officially drops February of next year, 2025. So if you guys don't catch it this year, you can catch it theatrically in select theaters around Canada. So look out, Morningside.
Awesome. They just can't get enough. They can't get enough.
Awesome.
You, man.
Thank you, Orville. Like I said, I'm gonna give you the old Johnny Carson. Come on back anytime you want. You were a great guest, and
Appreciate that.
Give you the Hey, Did You See This One seal of approval. Steve, what do you got cooking?
Well, I've got a lot cooking. Meth mostly, but I also am, still on the Darth Theorist channel. We're growing every day. We had a feud with another Star Wars channel recently, but we settled it. We settled it in the Outer Rim territories the old-fashioned way with blasters. But yeah, keep watching that. I'm on a ton of other ones that I list all the time, so I'm not going to list them all, but yeah, that's the big one right now. Come on, watch me talk about Star Wars. It's a great channel, guys.
I subscribe to it.
Oh, thank you, Jason.
I listened to it.
I forced him. I pinned him against the ground. I said, click subscribe.
You went from not having a YouTube channel with 1 million views, even though you've been doing this for 4 years. Oh, I forgot to mention 4-year anniversary. This is the 4-year anniversary episode of Hey, Did You See This One? Were you done with your plugs?
4 years later.
Yeah, 4 years. It's been an uphill battle, but over the last year specifically, we've been seeing some good growth. Things that I would like to plug. I would like to plug 4 years of Hey, Did You See This One? I would like to plug our Redbubble and TeePublic merch sites are open, where you can find such images as these. You can find the Grimoire Familiar Killers image, which you can have put onto a shirt.
I drew that.
You can find Kill Aid Man, which you can put onto a shirt. And you can find Twinkerbell, which you could also put onto a shirt.
I also drew that.
Sorry, Orville. Twinkerbell's here. And you can find all their logos there as well. I'm rolling it out. So far, my mom bought a shirt, so off to the races. You can also find Chip and Pepper in 1991.
No, stop this.
Okay, sorry. I'd also like to promote this show. Hey, Did You See This One? Is live on Twitch and YouTube each and every week at 8 p.m. Eastern. And like I said, it's fun for all to come and watch. And Orville, thank you for the invite to your film. I will not be able to make it because tomorrow night and Saturday night, I'm announcing as a professional wrestling announcer, which is a thing that I do monthly. Tomorrow night and tomorrow the 25th and Saturday the 26th, I will be announcing for Zombie Wrestling. It's the 2 nights a year where the professional wrestlers become zombies and fight each other in the
fuck at the end.
graveyard. And they fuck.
No,
they don't. No, they don't. No, they don't. They might. Who knows? You'll have to come check it out for yourself.
Might.
Uh-oh. And then next Thursday, I won't be at this show because I'll be right here covering Halloween 6, the return of Michael Myers. I don't even fucking
this is the one that we have to, we need to talk about it off screen.
But next Thursday is zombie wrestling as well at the Great Hall. There's 3 zombie wrestlings this year. One of them I can't make it to, but I want to promote that as well. And that's it. That's everything. I'll cover the ending stuff like I always do. But okay, Orville, I really wish that I would have prompted you and told you about like the synopsis thing. There's one more thing you have to do. Okay. I need you to ask a very important question. It's a question that we ask each and every week.
Okay.
And it's the name of the show, just to help you out. So ask it. You can see it.
Hey, did you see this one?
Oh, thank God. I was scared that you weren't going to know what to say.
Ask the question?
Sometimes they don't know, and I'll say, look at the name of the show.
Yeah.
Luckily, Orville knows.
I thought of so many questions to ask. And I'm like, huh? What? That was fun, guys. That was great.
Thank you so
Beam up some Star Trek content with Live Long and Podcast. Tune in to X-Rated, the X-Men animated review show. Artistic interviews with graphic histories. A roundtable movie discussion with Hey, did you see this one? And movie reviews with Hold Up, a movie podcast. And while you're at it, spin a few records with Eamon on Track.
What happened to
Watch
the
us
commercial?
duke it out on trivial debates.
Did it freeze?
And let's chat about TV with the Super Mater Brothers. It's all here on the United Federation of Podcasts.